T minus 30 seconds. T minus 20 seconds. Ten, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
What's up, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Kush's Corner here on the Trap Talk Reptile Network, the coolest reptile network in the world. Tonight, I am joined once again by my good friend Alex Myers, and this is no typical Alex podcast. We got some pretty important stuff to discuss tonight, along with our good friend Ari Flagel. Alex was recently over in Sulawesi to do some herping. We're going to talk a lot about that trip. Not only that, he produced his first clutch of Philippine sailfin dragons within the last week or so, which is very exciting. We're going to get into that as well. But before that, as always, USARC. So USARC is the organization that is fighting for our rights to keep our reptiles, to run our reptile businesses, and to live this lifestyle. Check out usarc.org for all of the information you need to know about the organization. There you can also find alerts to new legislation introduced on both local and national levels. There is also where you can become a member of USARC. As a community, we have strength in numbers. The more people that are behind the cause, the better. And here we are. Thank you to everybody who has tuned in live. Thank you to everyone in the live chat already. Shout out to everyone who is also listening after the fact as well. If you are here on YouTube, please subscribe to the channel if you are not already. Like, comment, share, hit that notification bell. New podcasts drop every single day of the week here on the channel from some of the best hosts in the game, talking about a wide variety of topics from within the reptile industry. So if you are a reptile podcast fan, you have come to the right place. We are also on the audio platforms, be it at Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, wherever you get your podcasts from. Follow, 5-star review, throw a comment on any of those platforms. That would be most appreciated. With all of that housekeeping out of the way, without further ado, let's get Alex on the show. Welcome back, Alex. Thank you for joining me.
I appreciate it. Very, 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 very hyped. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, man, we've done quite a few of these now. You've probably been on what, maybe 7 or 8 shows by now?
Oh, it's more than that. I did for my alexsagamids YouTube page, I did an entire playlist where it's just co-host episodes or episodes I've done with you, and I think it's almost near 12. So dang. Yeah, right. It's up there. So nice. I mean, hey, you're keeping the podcast streak going. You're putting out great content, and anytime you want me to co-host and talk with guests or just shoot the shit, I'm happy to do it.
It's always a pleasure. Well, not to diss on any of our old episodes, but maybe of all of them, the one I'm the most excited about here today, considering the subject matter at hand. There's we got 2 very important topics to cover today.
Yeah, we do. A lot has happened for me in the past 2 months, yes. Which is crazy to think about. That it's June was Indo, and then last week, literally second week of July was hatching some sailfins, which has been lifelong dream since I was 14 years old. So I mean, yeah, I feel like to say that I've seen 2 out of the 5 hydrosaurs in the wild and then hatch 1 out of 5 species before I've turned 25. That's a pretty big accomplishment.
Yeah, I'd like to say so. I
mean, you can say the same with scrub pythons, right? I mean, you got the Arus this year, and
I've seen 0 of the 5 of them in the wild. So I'm,
You'll get there. You'll get there.
Yeah. No, yeah, one day. But I mean, did you if I had told you 4 years ago or even 2 years ago, like in 2025, you're going to be doing your first expedition to see sailfins in the wild, what would you have told me?
I wouldn't have believed you if you said 2025 I'd have sailfins yet. I was really
fair enough.
Yeah, the past 2 years of my life, finishing up college and then figuring out the whole for lack of a better term, adulting thing, living on my own and trying to, keep up with work and keep animals. I would not have predicted this. So, I mean, I would not have believed you. Like, I feel very, very blessed to have gone where I have, do what I'm doing. And that's what I got to say about it, because I feel like had I would have known, especially, pre-college Alex, I would have worked even harder to get my ass through school than I already did. So yeah, it's pretty exciting, dude. I'm still riding the high of all of it. So yeah.
Yeah, no, I could absolutely imagine so. So how did this trip come about? How long was the planning process before you actually got on that first plane?
So it actually goes back about 2 years ago. Okay. So for those who are listening to this episode for the first time, long story short, when I was in college, I was president of the Herpetology Society, the student organization, and I was in charge with organizing guest speakers. So we had Ari as a guest speaker. He presented his research on Boland's python and sort of the history and customs of the tribes of the peoples of West Papua. Mm-hmm. And so with him traveling came up the idea of between me and my good friends, Aiden, Quinn, and my buddy Grant, why don't we just go to Indonesia with him? Because he had clearly stated that he could go to Indonesia, obviously not to West Papua. He was very strict on not bringing people along with him there for his research, which is, of course, respectable. Sure. But the reality is he's a guy that has been traveling overseas for 15 years. He understands, already speaks Indonesian. He has guides and contacts there to where the idea of going over there with him would be safe for me, who has zero background on customs and, sort of the peoples of Indonesia. Yeah. And that's how it started. We originally were hoping to do this trip back when I was in college, because since I wasn't having to deal with the concepts of paid time off, I wanted to spend 3 weeks on the island. It's just with delays and stuff, and Ari with the zoo, it was a constant back and forth. Sure. And sometimes I would be silent for a minute, and then I'd reach out, and then Ari would be. It just wasn't as organized until last year. Okay. And Ari and I just sort of had the link. We both had free time. We had time to plan, organize, and unfortunately, my good friend Grant, he could not make it on the trip, but my buddy Aiden and my buddy Quinn were able to. So Aiden is a botanist. He's really good with his plants. He also studies fish. And then Quinn, he's an ornithologist, so he's very passionate about birds. And so that was sort of our main goal, was to have the ecological field day, right? Yeah, and I mean, I like to bird watch in my free time too. Just it's kind of nice to go outside, decompress. If I'm not able to find snakes, there's going to be birds and stuff to look at. And if there's no birds, there's cool plants. So, I can always find something to do. And what better than, the 13th largest island in the world, which is Sulawesi, let alone in Indonesia. For birders, especially, from what I understand, almost, I want to say like 1/8, or maybe it's even like 1/6 of the island's bird species are endemic. So they're found nowhere else on the world except on Sulawesi. Oh, wow. Which, as you can imagine, that definitely ruffled Quinn's feathers a bit, pun intended there. but the point is that there are a lot of cool things to see there. And during my last, class in college, where I got to go to Costa Rica, it just was sort of like an eye-opening experience for me to want to travel and see the world more, because I've already traveled a lot. Like, just as a kid, my parents loved to travel. Like, for reference, I've been to all 50 United States, which is cool. However, there was often times where I would get homesick on those trips, because it was more of the touristy stuff, which was cool, and I got to experience like sort of the local cultures. But being able to spend 3 weeks in Costa Rica specifically for a wildlife class, that was the type of travel I wanted to do. And, during those 3 weeks, I didn't get homesick. And I was like, okay, I need to do this. And I need to do it seeing hydrosaurs in the wild, because I freaking love those lizards. Sulawesi, as of right now, is the only island in Indonesia that possesses 2 separate species on the same island. And they are endemic, so they're not found anywhere else on that in Indonesia. That would be Hydrosaurus celebensis and Hydrosaurus microlophus. The Sulawesi black giant sailfin and the Sulawesi giant sailfin, just because one's bigger than the other and one's pretty much a black and gold lizard. So pretty much the trip was organized. We booked our flights in December, and the plan was leave at the end of May and spend a solid 5 days on the island. The one thing for those who are interested in trying to get over into Indonesia, the flight there was long. Just to get to Jakarta, which is the main international city, the hub of Indonesia, it was 28 hours of fly time. So I left on a Friday morning from O'Hare International Airport in Chicago, Illinois, and we landed in Jakarta at 11:55 p.m. their time. So pretty much right at midnight Sunday morning. It was pretty grueling. The best advice I can say, since I cannot sleep easily on planes, my buddy Aiden, he bought Dramamine, which are anti-nausea and drowsiness pills. So I popped a couple of those and I was out. Like the flight from Tokyo to Jakarta, I went to sleep within half an hour of the plane taking off, and I woke up to the announcement saying that we were going to be landing soon.
Nice.
So that, shaved off about 7 hours. And it honestly, I think, helped with the reduction of jet lag, because I personally did not feel jet lagged arriving there and coming back, just by doing my best to, for lack of a better term, drug myself to sleep on those flights.
So was it O'Hare to Tokyo direct?
No, I did O'Hare to Dallas-Fort Worth, Dallas-Fort Worth to Tokyo, and then Tokyo to Jakarta.
Yeah.
And then we met Ari in Jakarta. He was already in Indonesia for some research there, so we met him there. And the thing that was really cool about Ari, so a bit of a, promo for him, for those of you that, again, might want to look into visiting Indonesia, is due to his resources, he is trying to start up his own ecotourism company, or technically he has. So it's Ecotropic Adventures. And the way he organized it, which, again, me having no background in world travel, I have to thank him for this. He gave us a flat fee. He's like, 5 days, you get to Jakarta, here's your fee. And he covers the flights to Makassar, Sulawesi, covers transportation, payment of the guides, food, hotel, house, it's all with him. The only extra things that we had to pay for is if we wanted to get snacks for ourselves, or like alcohol or something at a convenience store. Or it's one of those things too, where, like in my case, I want to say like one of my credit cards wasn't working. So Ari bought food, he kept a tab, and then I just PayPal'd him money. Right. Yeah. So he was very flexible about it, very professional. And again, it's just one less thing that I don't have to worry about over there. I'm there to stare at lizards and see cool wildlife. And it's just very, very nice that he's able to take care of all that. And he did that for all three of us, me, Quinn, and Aiden, who tagged along with him.
That's awesome.
Yeah, definitely a long flight though. And I highly suggest just sleeping pills, or in my case, Dramamine, because made it go by pretty quick. And I remember Aiden, Quinn, and I, when we landed in Tokyo, that was the long one. That was about a 14-hour flight. He said, that really wasn't that bad, but we were probably asleep for half of it. So
yeah,
what can I say about that?
What kind of plane was it?
Oh gosh, I don't know. I mean, it was big. I don't know plane models.
Okay, fair enough.
I know it was probably like, I remember there was like 3 seats in the middle row, and then there were like 3 on the outer row. So it was like 9 across. That was from DFW to Tokyo. Yeah. But I want to say it was a smaller plane from O'Hare to DFW. That was like,
for sure. Yeah. Okay. Well, so I guess a question that I have, and I feel like I've asked a few other people this, but as someone who hasn't traveled to Asia at all, as an American, as an English speaker, how difficult is it to navigate those airports?
Not at all. That was one of my biggest fears, but with it being an international airport, especially Tokyo, because it's, from what I understand, Tokyo has 2 international airports, Narita and then Haneda, and pretty much every flight sign had English, Japanese, and then I think I saw some Chinese characters and whatnot.
Okay.
So, but it's cool because like how in, say, the United States, there's the thing that shows you all the flights.
Mm-hmm.
They have that screen, and it would rotate every like 3 seconds between Japanese characters, and then it'd be the same flights, but then it would be English and then Chinese. So, I mean, we had no issues finding our flights. It was pretty straightforward. I mean, we also had about a 3-hour layover, and we just found our gate. And then once we knew where our gate was, we got food. We ate sushi there. So hard to beat. The one thing I'll tell you about Japan, though, was because of the 2 international airports, it was kind of annoying coming back. And I'm just going to throw this out here because we landed in Narita from Jakarta, but our flight to the USA was leaving from Haneda, which is about an hour bus ride. So we had to land in Narita, go through customs, explicitly state that we had a flight in Haneda, and then as soon as we walked out, there was a shuttle there, and we got our tickets, and then we just took the bus ride to Haneda. And that was within a 5-hour layover period. So we were still able to figure out and make good timing for our gate, no issues. But just something to keep in mind potentially.
Okay, that's interesting. And was Jakarta the same way?
Oh yeah, Jakarta was honestly easier. It's a big international airport.
Yeah, for sure. Mm-hmm. Cool.
I actually ran into on the flight there was an older gentleman sitting next to me. He was from Detroit, Michigan. He was like, "Are you an American?" I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "Oh, cool. I'm from Detroit." I have no idea what he was doing there, but he just said that. So it made me feel more comfortable because most of the people flying to Jakarta from Japan were, from what it looked like, Japanese or Indonesian people.
Mm-hmm.
So it was cool.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's pretty cool, huh? So then, how long were you in Jakarta before heading over to Sulawesi?
Literally like a span of 6 hours. We landed at midnight, pretty much midnight Sunday morning. And the thing is, at the airport, there were some QR codes, and Ari had told us about this beforehand. We had to submit that we were feeling fine and free of disease upon entry. Yeah. And then you have to get citizenship for Indonesia upon entry. So you go to a counter, you pay the equivalent of, I think it's like $33, and pretty much your foreigner visa is good for up to 33 days.
Okay.
Once you get that, then you go into custom, you get your bags and the whole 9 yards of entering a new country, pretty much.
That's a much better deal than the Trump gold card, $1 million.
It's. I can't comment on that, man. I just show my passport, and I'm like, "Does this get me to the Sailfins?" And they just tell me to keep going.
Like, "Yes, lizards, follow me."
Yes.
Okay. So then, I think another thing that people worry about as far as travel to some of these more remote destinations is, what does that flight look like once you're in Indonesia? So was it on a scale of 1 to 10, how sketchy? 5 mil. So, okay. So you could be like an Indonesian citizen for like 500 years before breaking how much it would cost for the Trump card. So I don't know. That sounds pretty cool to me. I'd much rather, go to Indonesia all the time like that. So yeah, what was the flight like to get to Sulawesi?
I mean, dude, it's nice. I mean, it's no different than me taking a small flight. When I was doing my first year of college at Marshall University in Huntington, West Virginia, they don't have a large airport. Yeah. So I'd have to fly from O'Hare to Charlotte, North Carolina, and then take a small plane into Huntington. And it was pretty much the equivalent of that. It wasn't some, shaky Jurassic Park 3 plane, right? I mean, they had full service and
cool,
the whole 9 yards. I have to say, the thing that caught us off guard, which Ari brought up, a lot of drugs are incredibly illegal there, like possession of marijuana or anything like that. And on the plane, they give their announcements in Indonesian, but then they do the English translation. It's like, possessions of drugs such as the following XXXX are punishable by death. And it's just the fact that it was so calmly said. And then Aiden and I looked over at each other like, did you just...
Oh my God.
So, yeah.
That's great.
But, again, it's a different culture.
Yeah,
The
sure.
other
But
thing
no,
that-
just like the casual punishment by death
yeah,
is just that's amazing.
no, I mean just straight up. I mean, it's, again, eye opening, but it's cool at the same time.
Yeah,
Right?
oh,
It's
that's
different,
awesome.
you know. That's why you visit parts of the world. Like, I mean,
Sure.
because of this journey, like I now have a goal that before I'm 50 years of age, I want to go to, say, I've been to all 7 continents.
That's
So, you know, I've got 2 down. So, you know, we'll see. But yeah,
2
just,
outside of North America.
no, well, no, just North America and
Okay,
Asia,
all right,
technically. Yeah. So
So,
gotta,
so then Sulawesi, I have to assume, is pretty well developed for tourism, right?
nobody visits here to do tourism, to my knowledge. When Ari,
For ecotourism, then.
yeah, or kind of. I mean, it's mostly, so the way I can describe it is that one, rule number 1, do everything Ari says, straight up. But pretty much when we landed, it's only like a 2-hour flight from Jakarta to Makassar. It's pretty fast. But Makassar is the capital city of Sulawesi. And what we ended up doing is we got a hotel sort of just outside the city, and that was home base for a few days, so we could drive around and hit different points. But
is this the point? I'm sorry to interrupt you. Where we should start bringing up some of these pictures, you think?
We can, if you want. I say, well, I'll just finish up on your question, but it's not like Jakarta touristy. When we were in Jakarta, we had noticed far more, I guess, like international options and flexibility, and pretty much everything in Makassar was purely Indonesian, which I thought was cool because I wanted that authentic experience. From what Ari had told me, most of the touristy stuff would be like the Bali Reptile Park. That's where a lot of birders go. Okay, Lisa just said bye. Thank you, Lisa. Like that's more, sort of, because it's a really short flight, or I think people can even drive there. But Makassar was a lot different. But again, it's kind of what I wanted to experience.
Sure, yeah.
I want to see how people are living. I want to see these animals that, for some of the places we're at, had not been messed with by people.
Is that your airport sushi?
Yes, that's our amazing airport sushi, which was far better than any sushi I've had in America.
Yeah, it looks like it. I mean, in America, you think of airport food as like the last resort and way too expensive. That looks like a great sushi restaurant in America.
Yeah, and I mean, for reference to the, I forget the conversion of Japanese yen to the U.S. currency, but like I bought food for all of us in that meal, and it was like $40. Not bad.
Not bad at all.
And it was delicious.
Prices.
Yeah.
Sure looks like it. So, all right. So then I guess once you guys got started on the herping excursion, so where was this picture, I guess?
That was Quinn getting our lifer, Carrie and Crow, straight outside of the Tokyo airport.
Oh, really?
For reference, like we had just left our gate, and he already had the camera out in his binocs, and
oh, that's funny.
He was excited. I mean, it was cool because we were able to get some birds in Tokyo. But yeah, the thing about birders, myself included, we all keep life lists. So we like to have a list of every bird species we've seen. Okay. And so seeing new species is very imperative. And I was pretty happy because I finally, after this trip, got my life list above 500 species. So it was pretty sweet.
I think birds?
Yeah, of birds that I've seen.
Damn.
But
I couldn't name half of that.
No, yeah, I like I said, it's just a fun little side hobby. And when the reptiles aren't out, you stare at birds. And so
very true.
That's sort of the peak there. But yeah, that was the journey there. And honestly, pretty straightforward. I had my fair share of anxiety just because our flight was supposed to leave O'Hare at 6:30 and it got delayed to 7:45. And I was really worried about missing my flight of landing in Dallas and then instantly flying to Tokyo. But the stewardess was really kind to, I had mentioned the delay, and no charge of the plane, they moved us up to first class just so we could get an easy exit. So that flight was really nice. because they had some open seats.
It's like, hey, I'm connecting to Japan. Can I get a better seat? They're like, you're flying from, you're like, what? You're flying to Indianapolis and you're going to Japan from there. It's like, yes.
Yeah, but it wasn't as bad as I had thought getting there. Because again, I've never been able to sleep on planes. So being able to kind of just pop some pills and pass out, that made it pretty
Dramamine
easy.
and go to Mars.
Yeah, that was a plan.
So did the herping start right away once you guys got there?
Yes and no, because we had to get to our airport, or not the airport, the hotel in Jakarta, and I had a contact of mine in Jakarta who had heard I was going there. And so he wanted to meet me finally. I've been his name's Abi. And so I talked about Sailfins with him back, through Facebook Messenger and WhatsApp. I was in a bunch of the Indonesian groups. Yes, that's Abi. And so quite literally, he heard that I wanted to see Sailfins, and he took that literally. So that photo was taken at, I want to say it was like 2 a.m. Jakarta time. So I had landed, I had gotten through, we got to the hotel, and he shows up on his motorcycle with a backpack, walks into the hotel lobby, and he brings out a adult male Sulawesi giant sailfin.
That's so cool.
He's like, yeah, you wanted to see one. And again, it was cool because I've been talking to him since I was a freshman in college, just through the Indonesian forums and whatnot, talking about sailfin localities and color types and where they come from. And he has quite a few over there. They're actually quite commonly kept as pets there. Okay. And yeah, it was just sort of, it was cool. I had wanted to meet some people, and he was kind enough to drive out, especially, at that hour of the night. But I guess he was really excited because, he had never, seen some of his contacts that he knows overseas. So yeah.
That's super cool.
And then pretty much what I recall, Ari said we had to leave Jakarta at like 4:15. Our flight was early. And so Abi and we just talked all night. And so while Aiden and Quinn, I want to say they went to bed and, they took a 2-hour power nap, I just pulled an all-nighter. We talked till about 3:34 in the morning, and then my alarm went off. I believe I sent you another photo of that sailfin on a bar stool. And quite literally, or not that one. The maybe I didn't send it, but there was literally a point where we're just talking, and he just puts the lizard on the stool in the hotel. So I haven't even been in Indonesia for less than 3 hours, and there's just a sailfin sitting in the hotel room while we're talking about Hydrosaurus.
That's cool.
So
yeah, I don't think. Oh no, here we go.
Yeah. So that's literally in my hotel. And it just sat there like that for about an hour or two while we were talking. He was sharing with me some of the pinpoints and the different color varieties that they've gotten in the Indonesian pet trade over the years. And it's just funny. Like, I'd look over, I was like, how is this real? I mean, maybe it was the sleep deprivation. I was like, is this like a fever dream? I'm talking about sailfins in Indonesia. There's just one sitting there. I believe I posted on my Snapchat story, like the timestamp. It was like, 2:34 in the morning. I just said, "Welcome to Indonesia, Alex edition." So that was cool. But again, like, just really nice to talk with Abi. I don't know. That's something that I've been trying to just do more is, I think a lot of reptile people can relate that you might talk with somebody for years just over the phone or through text, and, you don't realize it, but, you haven't met them ever.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
And so that's just something I try to do, especially with, a lot of reptile people who have supported me in my keeping endeavors and research endeavors. I've really tried to travel and visit with people just because I think it's important to, to see them, remind yourself that your mentors or your teachers are real people. And I just, I want to make sure I spend time sort of as a way of saying, like, thank you for all the help, because in Abi's case, I'd been talking with him online for coming up on 5 years. I'd never met him. Yeah. And the opportunity arose, and we sat there for 2 hours just talking about sailfins in a hotel till 4 in the morning when I had to fly to Makassar. I mean, that's
super cool.
Yeah, it was worth it. And he's a really nice guy. I want to say, I think his wife works nights because, you know, I talked with both of them. She's really into the sailfins too. And he was hoping to bring her, but it couldn't happen. So
yeah,
it's
cool.
That was my, like, I'm telling you, less than, 3 hours of being in Indonesia, in Jakarta, and Sulawesi giant sailfin. I could have just said there I saw one, faked an in situ photo and gone home. But
put it on the tree right outside the hotel and been like,
yeah, exactly. In the middle of the night.
Hey, you saw a sailfin in the wild in Indonesia. Technically,
Yeah.
What's the hobby market like over there for sailfin dragons? Are they a popular species to keep over in Indonesia and Asia?
Yeah, because they don't keep them in cages. Because they don't have air. He roams that one around his house.
Okay.
Yeah, it's interesting. So because of how their keeping isn't as advanced as American husbandry or even European husbandry, if you look at the photo of that lizard, and I guess I should clarify for the audio listeners, the lizard normally would have more yellow in the center of the body.
Yeah.
And from what Abi had told me, he had gotten that one about 4 months ago. And there's another contact in Jakarta who I sadly didn't get to meet, but the man's name is Arik. And he is much more involved in the private keeping of Hydrosaurus, and he also has hunters, and he imports stuff into Jakarta, and then he'll sell to the people that get them stateside. And what Arik had noticed was when they're kept indoors like that, due to the lack of a varied diet and proper UV, the lack of carotenoids and carotenes in the diet, they turn a washed out white color. And so unfortunately what happens is you'll see certain accounts, again, mostly in the Indonesian forums that I'm a part of, or, Facebook groups and WhatsApp chats, they'll be like, look, this is the panda version because it's black and white. And the reality, it just means it's an animal that's nutrient deficient for so long because it hasn't been getting the natural UV or the dietary variety that they would get in the wild. And it's unfortunate because I've seen then some U.S. keepers calling theirs that. And, they're like, see, the Indonesians know it. And, even Abi was telling me he has never seen sailfins in the wild. He just keeps them as pets as part of the sailfin community in Jakarta. So, when somebody buys one in Jakarta saying, oh, this is a locality pinrang, because that's what the vendor told them, the vendor who sold it in Jakarta very likely got it from somebody that shipped it over from Makassar. So that was why I wanted to go onto this island, because I was pretty much sick of these hobby names, these hobby terms, these localities. I wanted to get to the bottom of it, because even my mentor in sailfins, Scott, he had said you'll never be able to prove where your stuff was collected because nobody wants to give up their hunting spots, which is understandable.
Sure.
So I figured, when, especially going back to 2021, when Casey Schultz and I wrote our article in Reptiles magazine, we referred to the animals as respectively phenotypes. There are groups of these lizards that all look within this range of color, size, pattern, but we don't know where specifically they come from. And assuming if they followed suit with what the locals called them, so that the image of this specimen on the screen, they would often refer to that as Soalear Sopeng or Soalear Pinrang. And Sopeng and Pinrang are two regencies in Sulawesi. So think about we have United States, Sulawesi, that island has different regencies, Goiwa, which has the city of Malino in it, or Ujung Lemaru is a city, and I want to say that's in the Bone Regency, and then Pinrang, Sopeng, Cloaca, Palo, it's all different areas, and that's just it. Those areas were constantly regurgitated and then slapped on these lizards. Yeah. But, there's no way to prove it.
I mean, as is with a lot of different stuff that's in the hobby,
Yeah. I think
didn't even reach the States at that point.
What you said, honestly, a lot of what you said with scrub pythons, and I remember even back, working with your collection when it was in Chicago, and I was asking the localities, you were explaining how Dan Maliri would always refer to the different looks as just the type.
Right.
So that would come in as sarong, and he'd say this is a sarong type, right?
Yeah.
Doesn't mean it's from sarong, but that look of a heavily patterned barnuck is what they call sarong.
Yeah.
And so in my case, in Casey's case, when we wrote the article, the animal that's on screen, even though it's got a little bit of this white dorsum because it's been kept indoors, we had referred to that hypothetically as the northern phenotype of Hydrosaurus microlophus, because all of the common names associated with lizards that look like that originate with the common names Pinrang, Sopang, Bone, which are on the northern region, or some of the northernmost regencies of South Sulawesi specifically, which is where this species is endemic from. Every record, literally starting with Bleeker's description of the species in 1860, has that species only occurring on the South Peninsula of Sulawesi, Ujung Pandang, now known as Makassar.
Okay.
So that's why I personally wanted to go to that island, and specifically South Sulawesi, to get my feet right where they're at and be like, there's where that one is. I'm on, this area.
Yeah.
And in a sense, answer some questions, which of course has led to more questions. But it was a starting point nonetheless, and I was really excited. And once again, just good to finally meet somebody over there, especially an Indonesian hobbyist, hearing different perspectives, and
sure,
they get access to a lot of cool stuff because they're right there.
Yeah, they sure do. Having that kind of access would be super cool. Kind of like back in the old days when the U.S. was the market for those Indonesian reptiles, and now that so many other parts of the world are in that market, and frankly are paying more than the U.S., we've kind of been outcompeted for some of these Indonesian animals. So you said that Celebensis and Microlophus are the two species on Sulawesi? Yeah.
From the original accounts, Celebensis pretty much ranges into the northernmost region of the South Peninsula of the island. And then the Hydrosaurus microlophus is pretty much restricted to the southernmost areas. And Hydrosaurus microlophus currently is the largest sailfin in the genus of the 5 species. Okay. With Celebensis not far behind.
Okay, so there aren't sailfins in the northern parts of Sulawesi?
There are. I sadly wasn't able to get up there, but if you look on INAT, all I will say is that they look different.
So that would be maybe a novel species?
Who knows? In theory. The reality is and I want to say, I see in the chat, Nature for You was asking about genetic sequencing. Yeah. So to my knowledge, the only genetic work that has been done on the entirety of the genus Hydrosaurus was done by Rafe Brown. And I want to say Rafe Brown was one of the authors on the paper, but the specific research paper was Seiler et al. 2014, and it was like the genome sequencing of Australasian sailfin lizards of the genus Hydrosaurus. And their focus in that paper was on Hydrosaurus postellatus, because at the time there was a group of animals that came out of China and supplied parts of the world, and they were doing genetic work on the animals that were found in black markets in the Philippines to try and figure out which DNA of the different islands they matched. And all I'll say is, if you look at some of the animals in the hobby, and you look at some of the animals on iNaturalist that occur in the Bicol Peninsula, that's where the DNA matched. However, the main thing that I really liked about that paper is that the Philippines, the ones in the North Islands, are the classic purple, yellow with brown that we have in the hobby. And the ones pretty much like in the Bohol Island in South are this beautiful green reticulated and purple color.
Wow, that sounds beautiful.
I mean, morphologically, you'd say, oh, that's a different species. But the genetic work proved that they are all the same species. And the slight variations is just due to the fact that those islands are now starting to become isolated. But they're still closely related enough to consider every lizard, all the sailfin lizards on that island, to be the same species. They're just varying morphologically. For all the people in the United States listening, this would be the, as much as I hate to admit it.
Don't do it.
Yeah, I'm going to do it. This would be the equivalent of what Burbank et al. 2012 did with the rat snakes.
No.
How a yellow rat snake from Florida is genetically identical to a black rat snake from North Carolina because it's the same species filling, its respective morphotype has filled into the different habitat.
Yeah.
As much as I hate to say, I still disagree with that, but it's the same thing with the Philippine sailfin specifically. So to follow up Nature for You's question though, it was Seiler et al. 2014 that found the sailfins from Sulawesi were different than what we know as the Moluccan sailfin, Hydrosaurus amboinensis, which the sailfins at the time from Sulawesi were lumped into amboinensis, which in my opinion was stupid. I personally don't believe a 3-foot green reticulated lizard from Ambon, Surim, and the Moluccan archipelago is the same species as a black and gray 4-foot lizard that's built like a rhino iguana. And it was that paper that then sparked the research that went into Denzer et al. 2020, which is the most recent publication regarding Hydrosaurus taxonomy. And that was what resurrected the taxa for Hydrosaurus microlophus, described by Bleecker, and Hydrosaurus celebensis, described by Peters. Oh yeah, and Nature for You stating in the chat. Yes, so the paper, Seiler et al. 2014, Conservation Genetics of Australasian Sailfin Lizards, Flagship Species Threatened by Coastal Development and Insufficient Protected Area Coverage. If anybody's listening, by the way, I'll just throw this out here. That paper, you can get it for free on Google Scholar. If you do not have access to Google Scholar for whatever reason too, you can email me, hydrosorinae@gmail.com, and I can send you a copy of that paper if you want it. I've got the full PDF. I got it perfectly, legally, because during my time as a student, I had permitted access to the database. And so I was able to download and keep that paper. But I'm more than happy to share it if people want to read it more. And pretty much as of right now, nothing else has been done genetically. And the thing that I disagree with that paper is they simply had the DNA work as Hydrosaurus species Sulawesi on the phylogeny graph. And the question is, which species did they use when they had it pop up as Hydrosaurus species Sulawesi? They really didn't dive into it. They hinted in the paper that the fact that they saw the DNA from the animals from Sulawesi were different, if I recall correctly, they stated this may lead to the resurrection of Hydrosaurus celebensis, as described by Peters in 1872. However, it's like Bleecker described Hydrosaurus microlophus 12 years before celebensis was described in 1860. So it was sort of vague. And from what Nature for You is stating in the chat, in Seiler et al., they only used ND2 and CYTB markers. I'm not too familiar with genetics in taxonomy. This is why I need to reread that to understand the that type of DNA and how it's used. But from what he's saying in the chat, it's mitochondrial DNA, so it's not technically not sufficient for nomenclatural purposes. I wholeheartedly agree. I think the 2 color variations, should be split in the Philippines, but
yeah,
my opinion doesn't matter because I'm merely someone with a 4-year degree.
When you're dealing with species from a region like the Philippines, it's got to be so difficult, considering how fractured that country is, how many, all the many different islands, and I know less than you do, and definitely less than Scott does, but I could only imagine that, from the standpoint of a taxonomist, making a definitive claim on anything regarding a Philippine species has to be a difficult precedent.
And you got to remember too, if you think back to like early teachings, speciation is constantly happening. And with how recent we're talking, like those islands have split, best example would be, listening to you with your scrub pythons. Was it the scrub pythons from the Cape York Peninsula and then the Maruki type, the southern scrubs? They're probably the same thing. They've just been split for, a few thousand years. And in the case of these islands, hypothetically too, with how close some of those islands are, I wouldn't be surprised if those lizards have the capability to swim from island to island if they're close enough. And, then express, that you have gene sharing there. Yeah. But I would love to see them in the Philippines someday. That's, another thing on my bucket list is I want to at least see every hydrosaurus in the wild if I can. That is known. After I re-listened to the Nick Mutton and Ryan's Young episode, and they found a hydrosaurus on Waigeo. And if you look at the photo of that animal, morphologically speaking, that does not fit the description of Hydrosaurus weberi or Hydrosaurus amboinensis. It's definitely a new species. There is no way that lizard is the same species as a lizard from Halmahera, because, the one from Halmahera...
Weberized Halmahera.
Yeah, Weberized Halmahera.
Halmahera and Waigeo, they're not close to each other. Like those geographical, I guess the Malukus would be like the southern Malukus, like Ambon would be the closest to Waigeo, but even still not that close.
Yeah. And if I believe taxonomically the ones from Waigeo would be amboinensis, but
yeah,
Hydrosaurus amboinensis is the oldest lineage of Hydrosaurus, which is ironic that they have that as the type species, but it was technically the first one described by Schulcher in 1768. So that one looks more like a water dragon or like a Hypsilurus, in my opinion. And from an ancestry standpoint, if you look at the preserved specimens of Hypsilurus papuanensis, that's a Hypsilurus species that has a sail on its tail. So I guarantee you that's where they split. I want to say Seiler et al. Has the phylogenetics tree that shows how closely the Hydrosaurinae subfamily is in relation to the other agamids, but it's been a minute since I've read it. I should probably reread it and refresh my knowledge. But at least there's so much to learn, and it just baffles me. Like, this is arguably one of the largest, most charismatic agamid lizards on the planet, and yet we know hardly anything about it still.
Yeah.
And
well, we are sure glad we have you to make sure that doesn't continue to be the case. So considering that both of these species are from the southern portion of Sulawesi, what does create their speciation? Is there a geographic divide or something? What is it?
So while we were there on the island, the big thing that stood out to me is Sulawesi is a very volcanic island.
Okay.
So much to the point that there's actually species of birds that don't sit on their eggs. They bury their eggs like reptiles do in volcanic soil, and the volcano keeps the soil at like 105 and the eggs hatch naturally.
Wow.
And because of that, it is, I believe I sent some images. So for everybody that was hoping to hear about Sulawesi, I apologize for the past 30 minutes of taxonomic rambling. But I've got a landscape photo in there. And again, for the audio listeners, pretty much it is ridiculous how, in this case, I took a photograph of a rice paddy, because, you hear about, the rice paddies and rice farming. I'm like, oh my God, that's like a legitimate Indonesian rice paddy. Like, I'm seeing one. And then you literally start going, 10 miles and it's highlands. So the topography of that island is insane, how it can go from flat to straight up, easily a couple thousand feet in elevation. There's no gradual change. And based on where we were finding Hydrosaurus were always, fairly sea level and elevation. And if I had to guess, it's these the highlands play and serve as the geographic barriers that isolate them.
Got it.
And that's what we were finding when we were looking at it. But I mean, it's just beautiful too. And again, for me, it's just insane. Like I said, I've traveled the United States, so my family, we've driven through the Rocky Mountains. And there's a gradual incline over the course of a few miles, and it's flat, and then it just goes straight up. There's no in between, and truly incredible. And
Yeah.
when they did have a road that drove through the highlands, and even then I remember we had the windows down, and it was a hot sunny day. It was about 95 degrees out, and as soon as we went up, within a span of 10 minutes, we felt the temperature drop probably by 15 degrees.
That's so cool.
Like just how quickly it cooled off. I remember Ari, he looked at me, he's like, "Did you just feel that?" I was like, "Yeah, it just cooled off." But the sun's still out. I mean, it reminded me of when I was in the Talamanca Mountains in Costa Rica. Obviously I was about 13,000 feet above sea level, but how the sun can be beating down on you. The UV index is 13 and the ambient air temperature is 70 degrees.
Yeah, that's crazy.
It's just different. Yeah, unfortunately, I wish we could have spent some more time in the highlands, because there are king cobras on Sulawesi. From what I understand, they like those higher areas, but we just simply weren't in the ranges for them.
Yeah. That's super cool. Okay. So then I guess let's get into the actual expedition for said sailfins. Are there some pictures you want me to pull up for this? So where did you guys kind of get your start at with the sailfin journey? Yeah,
so if you want, I believe there's a photo of a canal in there. So we started on the east side.
Let me know when I hit it.
Yeah, there you go. So there's sorry, if you want, go back a little bit, but a little bit more. There we go. So that's a canal, and we were on the eastern side of the peninsula, and what we were looking for here was supposedly. So I had asked the guides. One of the guides that Ari had hired was familiar with sort of the common names of the lizards in Indonesian. So like biawak, it's a monitor.
Yeah,
that's what they call those. And then the Hydrosaurus they refer to as soalea or soa.
Okay.
And so with the common names from the Indonesian pet trade, I could show him a photo of like say a sailfin. I'd be like soa malino or soalea malino, locality malino, and they understood that. And so here we are. We weren't in Malino actually, but the animals we found here represented the look of what the hobby calls a Malino sailfin. So we're on the eastern side of the island, and the key with Hydrosaurus, and I guess just herping in general, is that if we see Hydrosaurus during the day, they will run, like unless they're sitting in the water. So we would go out at night and we'd shine to get a really good look at them. My buddy Quinn, who's a birder, had his camera, and so he could get photos of them at night. I have the photos on, I want to say it's on a OneDrive, so I wasn't able to send them to you through my phone. But if you go back to a photo of me with a sailfin on my arm in a restaurant, the animals that were found at that location in the canal on the sorry, not the eastern, the western side of the island, my apologies. So we were like, we stayed in Makassar, so we're on the western side here. The phenotype of these animals look like that. Okay. And so the babies are born with an olive tint. I actually currently possess an animal like this in my collection. Okay. And then as adults, they are this very deep brown color with a lot of black on the face. And they have pronounced dorsolateral scales, like the specimen that was shown in the photo of the one that was in the hotel that Abi brought. Yeah. So this is how they look, from what I understand, on the western side of South Sulawesi specifically, because I had asked the guide who lives in Makassar and he travels around looking at the herpetofauna. I said, Solear goiwa. He's like, it's the same one. I was like, well, what about Solear malino? He's like, dude, it's the same. Like they're all the same on this side of the island. And we were privileged enough. So that's, I guess I should clarify that photo specifically. One of Ari's guides knew that there were, in a sense, white people looking for sailfin lizards. So I was eating brunch and a guy pulls up in a car at the hotel, says hi to one of Ari's guides, points at me, Ari's guide nods, he walks back to his car, and then he brings out a sailfin. That's cool. He had asked, like, is that the guy that wants to see them? Yeah, that's awesome. I want to say Ari took that photo. So yeah, it was just, a guy brought that lizard, and it was, honestly a really incredible moment. Though I have to say the best part was my buddy Quinn went to the bathroom. So we were all eating breakfast. He leaves and he comes back 2 minutes later. And now there's a 3-foot lizard on my arm. And the look on his face was, I'm not even surprised, but how did that get there? So, I mean, truly remarkable. And that was my first time seeing that, I guess, color variety as an adult. Like I said, I'm currently raising up a neonate of one of those. And I've seen photos of people that get them in, but for whatever reason, that look, that phenotype, it just doesn't come in. Taxonomically, though, that would be Hydrosaurus microlophus, because Bleecker collected the specimen, I want to say, around Makassar. So that would be the western side of the South Sulawesi panhandle. And yeah, it was just funny. Like I said, I'm eating lunch, and this guy's like, oh, that's the dude that wants to see a sailfin, and he literally brings one. So
yeah, that's awesome.
Truly phenomenal. And in the case of the habitat, that canal area, Ari, his guides took us to a spot, and we were shining spotlights on them, and we were able to ID them. So yeah, it was pretty remarkable. And so that was sort of like the Hydrosaurus like area we went to. But the main part that, or let's say the first of the two main parts, where we actually got to observe them during the day, just because I think it was specifically the Bantamarung National Park in Indonesia. And there, you know, there's people that visit the park, so the sailfins, I'd imagine, are significantly more used to just people walking by. They're less flighty.
Kind of desensitized a bit.
Yeah. And so I say, if you go back, that's where we've got some of the photos of them. And I mean, Bantamarung is further north.
Like these?
Yep. And that was the very first male that we had seen.
Dude, that thing is so beautiful.
Dude, I mean, they're like 20 feet off the ground. Just absolutely. Dude, I gotten to see good looks of the ones at night, but like to be there, like just seeing that animal doing what its instincts have told it to do for millennia. I mean, I almost broke out in tears, but I didn't, because like, yeah, and you can see he's missing an arm too, so he's been through some stuff.
Oh yeah,
yeah, and our guide pointed it out, and we got photos. Ari took this photo. The majority of the lizard photos that I sent you were taken by Ari, because he was able to download them to his phone and send them to me. And then that was a female in Bantamarung National Park. So within the same river, like, we got to observe the male and the female, and we did see a juvenile there too, which was basking surprisingly quite close to the female. Yep, there's the photo of the juvenile.
So cute.
Oh yeah. And I mean, dude, you're talking that was probably 20 feet from the female along the same cluster of snags in the river. And just they were doing their thing. He swam up, he bobbed his little head, and then he was just sitting there getting some, sort of the overcast rays. That's the one thing that was definitely eye-opening for me, is anecdotally, Scott Corning had always preached in captivity that even though these are tropical lizards, you have to blast them with UV, because they just sit, he's like, they live near the river. There's less tree cover when they sit on exposed perches.
That makes a lot of sense.
Even with it being cloudy, like, I know my fingertips were like sunburned, because the UV was simply taken from extreme to less extreme.
Yeah, sure.
And they're just sitting there soaking it up right next to the water, to where if something spooks them, they'll just make a quick dash away.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, truly remarkable.
Lisa, yes, patola, that's the Indonesian term for scrub pythons. Yeah, man, that is so cool. I could only imagine. And so, like, in that instance, did that lizard had to have known you guys were right there?
Oh yeah, they were looking at us.
Totally aware. Okay.
Yep. That was what was pretty cool about Bantamarung, though. Since the national park, there was a metal railway, or like, walk path along the river, so we were just looking down on them, and just checking them out. Again, the topography of that area was insane because we were further north. Bantamarung is more centralized. So taxonomically speaking, these would be Celabensis.
Okay.
I'll tell you, though, if you go back to the female photo, and again, for the audio listeners, you can see she's got some enlarged dorsal scale clusters.
Yeah. So
which would point towards Microlophus.
Hey, it's part of the fun of it is all the confusion that goes involved. So yes. A question that I have, and I think maybe you less than most people with this kind of phenomenon because you have done so much research and have seen so many images of wild specimens. But did your perspective on their ideal body condition change upon seeing wild individuals?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you can see how chunky they are in those.
Yeah,
photos.
like that. These are healthy lizards. Like they're significant because you can never a fresh import. That's not representative of what they look like in the wild. That's what they look like after weeks of torture, essentially. Not to put it so harsh, but this is ideal condition right here. This little baby.
Yeah,
over
chunky.
Yeah. So I guess, are you going to be doing anything different in your practice with your sailfins based on what you saw, I guess, right now in terms of the body conditions of the animals in the wild?
I have, but I haven't. So you need to remember, in the case of the Hydrosaurus, they live near water.
Yeah.
And water is gateway for all sorts of parasites.
Sure.
And specifically, if you go back to the female, you can see either she's gravid in that photo, but you can still see her hip bones pretty well. Same with the juvenile. Yeah. So on one hand, I have noticed when dealing with imports that are parasitized, they don't hold fat as easily. So you can feed them well and they get the chunky belly, but their hip bones are still pretty prominent, and the fat pads on the heads are showing, especially in Chinese water dragons is what I've seen it more in. I was actually talking with my mentor in Chinese water dragons about it because I had one that was looking great, and now the head, he looks fat, but his head pads are shrunken. He's like, it could be a endoparasitic infection. But on the other hand, they're omnivores, man. And they're surrounded by all of these leafy trees. Even there's the snags, and then if you go back to the photo of the male, there's fresh leafy greens all by him.
Sure.
And so something I've been doing now in captivity is my uncle who lives up by me, he doesn't spray his lawn with pesticides or anything. So I have been taking a bunch of vining plants like grape and currant, and I will chop up 8-foot segments of it, and I will just throw it in the enclosure. And I've come back at the end of a day or two, and every leaf is picked off.
Wow.
A crazy, the amount of plant material that they consume if you allow them to graze. And I'd like to think in captivity it's, in theory, a bit more enriching. But I do wonder if, they know the difference between plants that they can pick and choose the leaves off of versus putting in a plate of salad every day. Because I'll tell you, my captive specimens were a lot leaner than the animals in those photos. And that goes for my Celabensis too.
Okay.
So I guess I'm trying to figure out ways to make them graze more, because obviously if I'm feeding them as much salad as they want with chopped up carrots and veggies, that's probably much higher in calorie content than just straight plant leaves.
Yeah.
So I guess that's what I've been trying to incorporate more into the diet, and I'm seeing that with my animals. They're filling out, and they're chunky, but they're not fat chunky. Where if I was feeding more plant or protein, not plants, but tilapia, shrimp, roaches, superworms. Sure. So that's sort of what I'm trying to figure out, is finding that mix. Is on one hand, are the animals, do they just have a crazy high parasite load, but they can keep up with it because they're getting the natural sun and the fresh air and the humidity and less stress, or is the other thing just they're grazing like crazy? And anecdotally, by providing a large amount of foliage in the enclosure that they can eat, they have been grazing nonstop.
I mean, I'd have to imagine that their immune systems are pretty well bolstered in the wild to where that parasite load would probably not be able to overtake the same way it would after being caught, being exported.
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
yeah.
And like I said, I have so much to learn still, and things that I want to translate into captivity. It's just honestly, I need to go back there. That's what I need to do. But regardless, just truly remarkable to see them. And again, that was the first thing that stood out to Ari and I. Were like, wow, that is a chunky lizard. That is a full, robust animal. And to me, it makes me think of like the iguanas. Like when I've seen, green iguanas in Costa Rica where they belong, they are very full. Yeah. They're not as lean as some of the ones you see in captivity.
Sure.
And part of me wonders again, iguanas are strictly herbivorous.
Yeah.
And they're surrounded by all that foliage all day. So are they just grazing, the equivalent of like a tree cow, high fiber, low nutrients, and they just get their mass that way. But in captivity, we make this super ornate salad. And per the quote unquote expert care guides, it has to only be the size of the head and the body. Otherwise, they'll become obese. And the captive animals are leaner and thinner than the animals we're seeing in the wild.
Yeah. There's some irony to that, that's for sure. We're right around that middle point, so I'm going to play the quick commercial break. We're going to get right back into this conversation, though, so don't go anywhere, and we will be right back.
Sorry for the interruption, folks, but a quick word from our sponsors. Green tree pythons, emerald tree boas, and plenty other arboreal snakes have been quite the popularity here at the Trap Talk Reptile Network, which brings me to today's sponsor, the Reptile Perch. Head over to the reptileperch.com and Reptile Perch on Instagram. See what type of design PVC perch is best for your arboreal reptile. But first and foremost, I would also check out David Brom's Green Tree Python availability on the website. And you can also check out his Instagram just to stay current on any projects or any productions that he posts. Thank you so much, David Broms, for your ongoing support. Looking forward to seeing what you have to show in the 2025 season. When you think about building a good community and being a leader of that community, nobody comes to mind better than Mark Hager over at Texas Chondros. That's right. Make sure you head over to TX Chondros on Instagram and also head over to Mark's website. See what he has available green tree python wise and be ready for quite the 2025 green tree python breeding season out of Mark Hager. He's a veteran in the green tree python game, one of the best and nicest breeders in the green tree python game. He's been putting on the whole state of Texas for as long as I've known him. So if you want to see all the amazing other chondro keepers out of the state of Texas, another good reason to go follow Mark Hager over at TX Chondros on Instagram. And again, head over to his website, texaschondros.com. You can find all the links in the description below. Thank you so much, Mark Hager, for supporting the trap. Treat.
Alrighty, we are back. So, question that I have, this baby, what was your estimate on how old it is?
Dude, I could not tell you. Because, like,
how big is it? Because it's hard to tell exactly with the perspective of the
if we had to guess, probably around, like, 14, 16 inches with the tail.
Okay, so snout to vent, maybe more like, what, like 5 or 6?
Yeah. I don't know. I'd say closer to 3 or 4. Their tail is...
Oh, okay, so it's smaller than it appears to be in the picture, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay, so... And based on the season you were over there, in regards with their breeding cycle, how old would you estimate this lizard is?
I would probably have to guess maybe a yearling.
Okay.
Assuming they grow slower in the wild, but who knows? Maybe they're growing faster with the fact that they're clearly eating more.
And that's kind of the point of my question. Seeing this animal, and I'm not sure if you saw other babies, but did you get was your perspective changed on potentially the growth rate that's ideal for these animals? I know, like, for me, that's a big thing with my scrub pythons that has been kind of on my mind over the last couple of years is, have we historically grown these animals too slowly early in their life? Really front load their growth and then slow them down once they get some size on them. Obviously, a snake and a lizard, you're talking about very different animals, but the concept, I think, can kind of hold true. So I guess without answering the question for you, seeing this baby or others you may have seen, did it change your perspective on the growth rate that these animals should be having?
Yes and no, because for instance, in the wild, especially with lizards, think about how many species of plants are in that area, and the lizard's just grazing what it wants. And there's been studies specifically in snakes that have shown dietary variety does lead to faster growth rates. The Oregon Center for Indigo Conservation published a paper a few years ago, and I had heard it through our former guest, Dr. Zach Lohman, and pretty much the study had found that if indigos were fed only rodents, they grew all right, and then indigos that were rotated between rodents, tilapia, and chicks grew much faster and were much more robust. And I just imagine that it's the variety of different nutrients.
Yeah.
Right? Getting a more well-rounded diet. And so I think in captivity, we can definitely do our best to add variety. But if you're talking, that lizard in theory is going to consume over 100 different, types of plants in its life. At least I can do at most maybe 15 different species of edible plants in captivity. And I'm probably one of the exceptions. I'm sure there are plenty of other keepers that just get collard greens every week and chop it up. So I have found, like in the case of the juvenile microlophus I'm currently raising up, that thing has grown massive, like really quickly for me. I got it at March Tinley.
Okay.
About 16 inches. It's pushing 20 right now.
Wow.
Yeah, but I have photos of it. I'm pretty sure it's a male, but the sail on the tail, you can see every month it gains probably 1/8 of an inch in height.
Nice.
It's ridiculous. So to say what's ideal, I'm not sure, because assuming that animal is 15 inches long, I know somebody who has a yearling that's 15 inches. And I also knew somebody who had a yearling that they fed the living crap out of it, but they also did a lot more protein in the diet, and that animal hit 24 inches by 11 months of age. So who's to say what's the best? I'll tell you, the 11-month-old, that's about the same size as that one, was raised outdoors too. And if it's worth noting, there's a basilisk keeper by the name of Eric Haycraft, and he did an episode, I want to say it was with either Project Herpeticulture or Bill Bradley's podcast on the Herpeticulture Network, Lizard Brain Radio. And I remember him explicitly stating that when he had moved his basilisks outdoors in Kentucky, he found they ate less. There's more stimulus. The lizards aren't being put, they're not having a bowl of food put in front of them in an indoor enclosure, and they go and eat. Now they're outdoors. They're seeing birds fly overhead. They're seeing the wind rustle plants. So they might not feel as safe to just eat their brains out, in an indoor box. So they might grow faster in the wild from the variety of nutrients, but maybe they're, in turn physically eating less, because if all they do is eat the way they would in a box with no worry or fear of predators or stimuli to encourage them to engage in behaviors that make them check their surroundings. Yeah. They're just going to keep eating and eat. So again, a lot of questions, but what I'll tell you is, these images are, continuous proof. The body condition, it surprised me.
Yeah. Oh no, 100%. Are there other pictures of sailfins in the mix here?
Yeah, there should be.
No.
That's a cool one. So there we are in Bantamarung on the side of the river. If you zoom in, so I wanted to do that so we could see the habitat, but zoom in on Aiden's camera.
Oh,
yeah,
that's cool.
Yeah. So I thought that was a cool photo. So it is actually on the tree. If you scroll up, you can see the silhouette of it. So it's sort of in the center of the top center of the branch. Yeah, if you move your cursor to more to the right, more further to the right, down, form like a, now keep going right. Further down. He's right there. You're right above him. Yep. That little spot right there is the sail.
Okay. This makes for great audio content.
Yes. Okay, to all the audio listeners, you'll have to check out the video, because there's a lot of
Yes, a lot of
really
visual
cool,
aids here.
really cool visual aids.
Oh, we'll get to that in a little bit.
Yeah.
There we go. There's another one.
So,
okay. So what's the story on this animal? Obviously a big male.
Yeah. So in short, for those following along, listening to my herpetological ADHD ramblings, we started on the western side. We made it into Bantamarung, which is the north, sort of in the central part, further north of South Sulawesi, where presently the animals there are recognized as Hydrosaurus celebensis, and now we made it to the eastern side of the island here.
Okay.
And this is a photo. The guides pointed it out, and this is an adult male Hydrosaurus microlophus, which, as you can tell, with its bright yellow dorsum and chin in larger scales, clearly it is the exact same lizard as the brown and black lizard with smaller dorsal scales.
Yeah.
Okay, morphologically, they're obviously different. But what I'll tell you is that we were now on the eastern side. Okay. So if I had to guess, again, the highland range is what's separating these two phenotypes. I think Vin Russo, I listened to your long episode with him. He referred to the island boas as like the different races of boas. So they're all imperator, but a hog island race versus a croquet. Yeah. So eastern and western microlophus, if you will. Yeah. I can't coin that as a professional term, but based on where I was at on the island and per the terminology the guides were stating, I asked them, is there a difference between the different localities of these animals on the western side? And they said, no, they're all the same. And I asked him the same question about these. I was like, is this the same locality as the ones from Bone? They're like, dude, it's the same one. I was like, what about Pinrang and Sopang? He's like, it's the same. Yeah. We're on the western side now. That's all it is. Yeah. So if anything, it would fit, the best analogy I could use, because I'd imagine most of your audience, listening are going to be the snake people, what you've been preaching and what other people have been preaching about the scrub pythons. Barnecks in the north, right? And patternless, or not patternless, but the brown, the southerns. Yeah. The south. And then the highlands are the Bolans, which separate those two. Yep. Obviously, you could go even further in depth, and I probably screwed that up a bit. My apologies, but that's the best thing that I can compare it to. And I cannot pick favorites, but that is one of my favorite looking Hydrosaurus in the world. Like, because Microlophus is the only Hydrosaurus currently recognized that has those crazy enlarged dorsolateral scales, and they're keeled. So it goes from smooth scales to keeled scale patches, and dude, the yellow and the gray.
I think we're going to kind of ruin that, but you can kind of see a little bit though of the increased scale size.
An absolutely remarkable animal.
That's amazing. That's just like such a majestic, regal animal right there. Just I don't know. That's so freaking cool.
They are the king of the agamids. I will go on that hill. Again, I cannot pick a favorite because I'll probably be just as amazed if I ever get to see a purple and gold Philippine sailfin in the wild. And I'll be just as excited if I see a mint and chocolate chip colored Weber's on Halmahera. Yes. They are just beautiful, and I admire them way too much, I think. But just to see that animal, be in the presence of it. Gosh, that lizard, the snout to vent, that lizard had to be 14 inches. Is big. Gosh, if I had to guess, the first thing that came to my mind is I had seen animals approximately that size in Scott Corning's collection. And every single one of his that had finally achieved that body size, they were all in their teens. So that lizard has probably owned that river for, a decade, if not more. He's just, I don't know. There's got to be something, I don't know, at least in my opinion, I find it humbling, knowing that with all the things that we as humans do in our lives, right? The way how we form societies and the thing that we do as people, right? We have to go to work, or like that's just what we do as a species. I sort of had like a moment thinking when I saw that lizard that all that lizard has had to think about is defending territory, escaping predators, continuing, its species, and living every day, eating, and like that stretch of the river.
Yeah.
To think that that's all it has to do, and yet like how difficult that is for a lizard like that. Like torrential downpours when the monsoon season comes. I should have started at the beginning. We were here during the dry season, right before it would get to the wet season.
Okay.
And it's just, dude, that is just awe-inspiring. I can't even put like a word to describe it. Like for me, it just doesn't get much better than that. It really doesn't.
I couldn't imagine so. I mean, my God. Yeah. I could imagine my equivalent of that, and it would just it wouldn't even feel like a real life situation. It's like, am I at the zoo right now? Like, what's happening?
Yeah. That's how it felt. And like on that stream, there was a really big rock. So I sat on it during the day. He had moved on, but Ari had pointed out there was a baby in that area. And so we had sat there and we had just watched the little ones run around, hop from rock to rock, probably for a good hour. Again, just, that's who needs TV, like watching Hydrosaurus thermoregulate and try and catch bugs.
Yeah, that's so cool.
I just sat on there. I stayed still, and eventually they realized, maybe I wasn't going to hurt them, or I was staying so still that they didn't process me, and the babies were running around. But that male was the highlight. And we had caught glimpse of a female, and sadly, we didn't get. She jumped into the water, and so I don't have a photo of a female of that phenotype in the wild, unfortunately, but we did see one, and it was pretty cool.
So good question here from Lisa. At that size, what predators does it still have?
I'd imagine retics. I feel like retics eat anything.
What's the retic range on Sulawesi?
Well, if it's any insight, that exact river body is where we found one.
Okay, so there you go.
Yeah.
Interesting.
That's right outside here. Yeah, the sea eagles, nature for you mentioned that. So there, we saw some birds of prey. We did see, maybe this was where we saw all of our snakes for the trip, but we did see Sulawesi serpent eagles, which are, I believe, snake obligate birds of prey, which is super cool. There was a pair, and I want to say, like, us being bird nerds, there is a online database where you can upload observations of birds. And the Sulawesi serpent eagle, after we had uploaded ours, I think we were like the 920, like under 1,000 observations of those birds in the wild. And I think less than 200 photographs of them in the wild on eBird. So that was kind of cool.
Did you send me the picture of that one?
I don't have a photo of the eagle. I wanted to give you a photo of something that I personally thought was cooler, which we can talk about as we continue on. But
so was this it for your sailfin discoveries, or? Yeah,
this was pretty much it. We got to see the brown phase on the western side, and then we got to see this phase on the eastern side. And then when we drove up north into Bantamarung, we saw what was currently recognized as Celebensis, though in my opinion, because like I own Celebensis, and the animals that I have do not look like the ones in Bantamarung. Mine represent the photos I see of the ones on iNaturals from Palopo, which is where Peters described the species. So if I had to guess, Bantamarung's right in between there. And occasionally we do see animals in the hobby that look like in-betweeners. So if I had to guess, integrate zone, what's going on there? I don't know. Genetic work needs to be done, and we'll see what happens.
Cool. Well, on the related topic,
and there was the retic.
Yeah, that's a very, very beautiful retic. as the Sulawesi retics are pretty small looks too, right?
About if I had to say stretched out, maybe 5 feet.
Yeah. Okay. Where'd you guys find this little one?
So again, Ari's guides, dude. Well, let me clarify. I love reptiles. I suck at herping. I am so bad at it. Okay. So I would just follow the guides and they would point stuff out. And so, yeah, this was one. He's on a rock here because it was by the river.
Yeah.
And it had just eaten a male. So for the audio listeners, I mean, for all the care guides that say a snake like this should only eat a mouse equal to the diameter of its body once a week, this is the equivalent of a snake eating a medium rat. And it's
this thing did not listen to the recommendations, unfortunately.
It did not. There were so many bats over there. I guarantee you these snakes just go up and snake because all the trees fruit. So a lot of fruit bats. And yeah, that retic, he had gorged himself clearly, but I was really hoping to see one of these because, so for me,
there you go.
I don't know if you remember this. There's a pinnacle moment in my nature documentary history of watching stuff, and my dad would watch the episode with me all the time. It was when Brady Barr went into the caves of Bali looking for retics, and he's wading through probably 2-3 feet of bat guano water, and they catch this one retic that's maybe 9 feet, and it bites him under the water. And so, now his wound's getting soaked in bat crap water. But that just stuck with me wow, seeing a wild retic in Indonesia. And then obviously later on, knowing Bali's proximity to Sulawesi and, the, dare I say, true icon that is a Bali yellowhead retic.
Yeah.
Knowing the ones in this case from South Sulawesi would also sort of have that golden head because, let's face it, that's probably very, very similar morphologically speaking, given the geography. And just absolute beauty to see one. And a part of me was hoping to see a really big one, but at the same time, I felt maybe a little bit more comfortable since this location on the eastern side of the island, we set up camp. So I was sleeping in a tent on the jungle floor. And the idea of maybe not having a 20-foot retic in the area made me feel just a little bit more comfy.
Yeah, I could imagine so. Yeah, wow, shoot, seeing that giant snake in the wild would be incredible, but this nonetheless. I mean, do you have any insight as to why the Sulawesi retics attain such a monumental size, kind of, let's say, in comparison to maybe a Bali animal, which is not necessarily far away, but significantly smaller?
Still bigger. So if I had to guess, and I'm not the biggest snake person, but from an ecology standpoint, are you familiar with the concept of Wallace's line?
Educate me. Okay.
So in a sense, there's this from what, and again, I have very, very minimal understanding, but from what I know, with the way the islands of Indonesia formed, even though they are now currently in time relatively close, the concept of Wallace's line divides Borneo, Malaysia, Java, and the Philippines, and then Sulawesi and all of the islands that are east. The fauna and flora is noticeably different.
Okay.
Emphasis in the case of the Sulawesi retics, there are no tigers or other large apex predatory mammals on that island. So if I had to guess, say the Java tiger, right? Or like Borneo, I believe there's tiger. I think there's tigers on Borneo. Don't quote me on that one. I'm not a cat biologist, but the point is that if I had to suspect, it's the lack of large apex mammalian predators, and so those snakes have filled the role as an apex predator.
Okay.
Think about why Komodo dragons are huge on Flores Komodo.
Yeah.
So,
okay,
that is what I would guess, right? Because there are macaques on the island, and I've seen old footage of Sulawesi retics climbing up trees, and I guarantee you some of the big ones will feed on the macaque monkeys.
Yeah.
Because the macaques are not very big. There's also the babirusa, which is like a wild pig. I sadly didn't get to see one because I wasn't in range. But they've got these crazy tusks that curl back. They're incredible. Again, more of a reason why I have to go back, because I was specifically in South Sulawesi, which is the part of Sulawesi that hardly anybody goes to.
Okay.
So, yeah, I like for reference on iNaturalist, in the stream where we saw the Hydrosaurus in this retic, we found shrimp on the island, and my buddy cataloged it, and it was the first time shrimp, I want to say Neocardinia, or Aiden's going to murder me if he listens to this, because he's probably said this to me tens of thousands of times, and I just go straight over my head. It was the first observation of that genus of shrimp on the entire island on iNaturalist. So,
wow, that's crazy.
Yeah. But that would be my guess as to why they get large, because they really don't have much to worry about once they're bigger. And as we know with reptiles, they don't stop growing. So if you have less apex predators to compete with for food and resources, then you become the apex predator of that area.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. Well,
it's just absolutely beautiful retic. I love too, like you can see the orange continues in between the netting on the top part. Like, that photo doesn't do it justice how orange that snake was. Yeah,
no, that's absolutely gorgeous. But then on the other end of the color spectrum, got this right here.
Yes, that I will say, out of all the snakes that I wanted to see on the island, I knew a king cobra would be hard to get. I wasn't sure about that one. And that photo was taken, so we had woken up early in the morning. So the image says it was saved at like 5:08 p.m. I believe time zone wise, it should have been 6:08 a.m. We're walking with the guides, and they do know the Latin names. And the one guide goes, Alex Boyega. And I just dropped all shit and ran. I was like, where? And he points up this tree. And so, yeah, it was a full-grown adult. So for the audio listeners, the Boyega are the mangrove snakes. And most notably, they will look different depending on which island they're on. And Sulawesi has a couple species, but sort of, I guess, if you want to consider the former Dendrophilia complex, now I believe they're all elevated to their own respective species. But Sulawesi has Boyega gemicincta, and that is the Sulawesi black mangrove snake, which from what I understand, I was looking at, observations of these on iNaturalist. They're found everywhere on the island. And so, just to see one, I'd say stretched out, that snake had to be 5.5 feet. It was bigger than the retic, for reference. It was a big adult. And
awesome.
Yeah, I don't know if you can, like, if you want to try zooming in on the body area, it had also just eaten, so stuff was on the move. And it was not happy about us looking at it.
That's a meme right there.
Yeah. So I was geeking out. I was very, very happy. And again, just an absolutely beautiful snake. I had never seen an adult in person either. I remember, back in Indianapolis, we were working with some of the young ones. But for I was like, wow, sweet. I got to see my first adult, and it was one in situ, right? Like, well, cross that off the list.
If there's ever a place to see it, I think you found the right place.
Yeah,
that would be.
They're absolutely remarkable, and the mouth is completely white. I believe I sent you a photo that Ari took. Yeah, so I mean, to me it reminds me like a reverse black mamba, or honestly just a tree cottonmouth. You know what I mean? Like
yeah, pretty much. That's a good comparison for sure.
Yeah, and definitely intimidating. It was funny because I had forgotten which tree it was on. And then I remembered where it was, and I just didn't care. And my friend was filming me walking by it. I didn't even stare at it. And apparently it just took a swing at me. And so he has this video of me like just walking casually past the snake as it narrowly misses my face.
Oh my gosh.
And yeah, I need to ask him for that video, but I guess he sent it to some friends and they were like, they expect nothing less from the reptile person. But I genuinely didn't even realize it did its thing. So
that's funny.
that was it was pretty funny, but absolutely beautiful snake. Probably my favorite. I mean, I like the island of Sulawesi in general is really amazing if you read up on it. But yeah, that's probably my favorite as far as like the dendrophilia. Man, I mean, Melanota is super cool, and Divergent, you can't beat the blue and gold. So
yeah,
honestly, like for people that like mangrove snakes, you just got to have all of them. That's the reality.
That is the unfortunate truth of the situation. Yeah, especially those three, and then throw the Lata fasciata in there too. Mm-hmm. Those are the four for me. But yeah, that's such a badass snake, man, and definitely. I'll echo Lisa's sentiment. Very, very thick-bodied snake. It obviously is puffed up in defense, but even still, that you can't achieve that just by being puffed up. That's definitely a healthy-bodied snake.
It had eaten too. There was a big food bulge in it.
Yeah.
And, a lot of the snakes. I don't know if that image captures it well. There's so many parasites and stuff they've got. I mean, you could see a lot of bumps in the skin and whatnot.
Yeah.
It was pretty remarkable, though. I was very, very pleased.
Yeah. No, dude, that's so cool. So I guess at this point, I'm not sure what that was. What did the rest of the trip look like for you? Like at this point, how far into the trip were you once you were seeing these animals?
This would have been day 4, morning of day 4. So we had finished camping for the night and we were heading back to Makassar. We were going to have our rest day because then we had to get back to Jakarta and then fly back. So yeah, we walked around a little bit. I say, if you want to go, not to bore people, but I do have to share a story from the night before this mangrove. If you can go to the owl.
Yep.
I'm sorry. The birder in me has to share this because
go for it.
Indonesia has these group of small owls called scops owls, and they're pretty much like our equivalent of like a screech owl.
Yeah.
Very small tree specialists.
Okay.
And each island has its own endemic scops owl. And there are a lot of sightings of these on Sulawesi, but pretty much all of them are from where the birders go in the northern areas of Sulawesi, central Sulawesi. And our hopes were kind of low since we were in the southern area of Sulawesi. So I kid you not, Quinn and Aiden, and I was lumped into it with them, the amount of research we had done as far as like trying to understand the calls of these. It's a very light, like a whoop, whoop. And we were eating dinner at our campfire. We were practicing it because we were going to try and get callbacks. And then we all go silent. And mind you, Ari is laughing his mind off because he's never dealt with bird people before. So we thought Ari was trying to pull our leg and make the call back. And mind you, this is probably 40 minutes after sundown. So we're eating. We finished like practicing, hoping like, we have the frequency right to try and get a call back of this bird. And we thought Ari was pulling our leg. Like, Ari, did you just try and make the owl call? And he goes, no. We shot up so fast. It's a miracle nobody set themselves on fire, honestly. And there was one calling right at our campsite.
Oh, wow.
And so we brought a Bluetooth speaker and we had played the call back. We had practiced a little bit and finally we got him to fly right above us. And this is the crappy screenshot I have from the video I took of that owl. I'm not sharing that video because there's a lot of foul language and excitement that was said while I filmed it. But yeah, the Sulawesi scops owl. So that is an island endemic owl. It is only found on the island of Sulawesi. And to my knowledge, like on eBird, we were the 1,000th observation of it in the wild.
Damn.
So that was pretty cool.
Wow.
I think it's gone up. Technically, it's like 1,003 because we all submitted our observation.
Mm.
But it was.
Game
I love owls. I'm a big owl fan. Like just this year, I was doing an owl trip up north, and like in a single day, I had gotten like a boreal owl, a great gray owl, and a snowy owl on a single trip. And the boreal owl is one of the rarest birds in North America you can photograph. So, like, I'm laughing because I still have yet to personally see like an eastern screech owl, which is a pretty common owl. And yet I have like North America's rarest owl, and I have a freaking Indonesian island endemic owl before I've seen a common eastern screech. So it's funny how it works out. But I just, at least it's now shared in the video archives of YouTube that there is at least a photograph of one of these from South Sulawesi specifically.
Yeah.
And truly remarkable.
Yeah, that's super cool. So then how many days were you like in the field fully herping, birding, etc.?
It was only the 2 days. Given our proximity of the hotel in Makassar, we kind of used that so we actually could get decent sleep and air conditioning. And then every day we would go out about an hour to the different spots.
So then I guess even including those hotel days, like how many total days were there herping excursions going down?
Pretty much 5 days.
5 days. Okay. Cool.
Well, I guess technically 4, I should clarify, because then the last day we went out in the morning of the Boyega, and then we had to get back to Makassar, sleep, and then get on the early flight back to Jakarta.
I mean, are there any pictures in here that I've missed of some of the nature scenes, animals that we should pull?
That's pretty much all the best photos. We did see, I'll add some, I guess, verbal highlights. So for the audio listeners who are happy, it was difficult getting photos of stuff that was on the move. We did see the subspecies of the Philippine rat snake. So it's the Culignathus erythrithius celebensis. I probably totally butchered that Latin name.
Okay.
But it's if you're familiar with like the trinket rat snakes, Culignathus, there's a species on the Philippines. And then for whatever reason, there's a subspecies of that exact snake on Sulawesi, and we just saw one. I was worried.
To a trinket rat snake or a
no
rat? No.
It looks more like a copper rat, all gray.
Okay.
Yeah, a gray snake with like a bronze tail. So we caught a glimpse of that by the river. It was a big one, about 4.5, 5 feet. And then
so probably size-wise more similar to a copper rat than like a radiated rat.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then there was another, it was like some type of water snake. It had like an olive green tint to it. I never was able to key it out, but I should probably, what's it called? Ask Ari if he can reach out to the guides and get the photos of that. But that was it for snakes. And all of those snakes were in the river area where that retic and that sailfin was, because we were camping there. So we were able to really be out and hit it hard. And then I did get to see a wild emerald tree skink briefly. So that was cool. And the subspecies from Sulawesi has got a black vertical line down its back. I was sitting on the river watching the hydros, and Aiden goes up. He's like, "What lizard is that?" And then I tried to like get a photo of it, but it was climbing up a tree. But it was an emerald green skink. So that was really cool. Yeah. Something I didn't know I needed to see, but something I definitely wanted to see. And then I suck at amphibians, but there were a lot of the crab frogs. So in that stream area, there are a ton of freshwater crabs. Okay. And there's these frogs that predate on them. And, they're pretty rad. I may have sent you a photo of those. I know I got a photo of one of those in situ, but
is this kind of what you're looking like for the sailfin habitat? Kind of
yeah. Okay. If you zoom in, that's where the female celebensis is in Bantamarong. She's sitting on there. She's right in front of you.
Okay.
I don't know if you move your cursor.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I see her now.
Yeah. So I wanted to get lots of photos of the habitat.
Yeah.
And I mean, again, it's a gnarly, like for reference, that's the same river that sailfin was on. So it just goes straight, like there's no riverbank there. There is water, and then it is 200 plus feet of shale carved rock from millennia of erosion. Like
that's absolutely insane.
Yeah. And then, the lizards are sitting on the trees over it, so it means they scale up that rock every time they jump in the water.
Yeah.
That was me being a little risky near the slippery moss rocks in the rapids. But it was, that's what those lizards are living in. Just constant, miserable humidity. That's a cool photo from the national park. So it just, again, puts in perspective the highlands. It's flat, and then there's the tourist areas, and then it goes straight up.
That's so cool.
There's no gradient. It's just a wall of moss and hanging plants. And you could hear so many birds.
What's the elevation at the base right here, like where the camp, so to speak, is?
If I had to guess, I remember I checked my compass. We're maybe only 500 feet.
Yeah,
it's flat because you're practically level with the rivers.
Yeah, isn't that kind of a function of like low elevation mountains where it's very much just like flat to up to flat again, less of like a grade?
You would know more than me on that. I was too busy being fascinated by it.
Yeah, my only like real life experience with it is like driving from here to California, like to San Diego, through a ton of mountains. And then when you're through West Texas, through New Mexico, Arizona, it's pretty high elevation, all things considered. So like you kind of gradually go up and down through the mountains. But then once you get into kind of like southeastern California, you're at sea level in like El Centro, California. And it's just like flat farmland and then mountain. Where there's very little grade going into the mountain. That's kind of what this reminds me of. Obviously a very different part of the world, but kind of a similar phenomenon. Like this right here. Mm-hmm. That's it's kind of what it looks like, except probably like the mountains are a little more sparse in that part of California. So I don't know. Yeah, just very interesting kind of to be able to compare geography from across the world. But yeah, it would probably be pretty scary trying to get up into those mountains. Like that's
I would love to climb. Do the birds and stuff that we heard. We were able to see a lot of cool birds out there in Bantamarung, but the birds we heard, I would have given to just scale up a rock face and try and ID them.
Because it's not only just the fact that it's treacherous and a steep climb. I'd have to imagine those rocks are really slick too.
Oh yeah, it's like there's a mist being kicked up from the river in the rapids.
Yeah, no fun. What's this exotic looking fruit?
That's a rambutan.
Who? Isn't that a shape?
It's a type of fruit. Imagine a grape with a pit and it's got a hairy shell.
Huh.
So you peel them. I probably ate like 40 of those in one sitting.
So they got to be pretty good then, right?
Oh, they're amazing. Yeah. So it's worth showing. They grow them there. So
let's see. So
that's the gate of Indonesia. That's what you see when you walk in after you land.
That's cool. And then
that was my flight map. I was getting excited because Makassar is the capital city, but Ujung Pandang is the traditional name. And I wanted to make sure I sent that because when Scott Corning got Microlophus back in the mid-2000s, before it was identified as Microlophus, he knew it was different. So if I recall correctly, he ended up having a fire in one of his first buildings, which killed his male and his female, and he had a lone female from that trio.
Yeah.
And that's when, they weren't coming in again for like 14 years. And he didn't want to lose the bloodline of that species. So that's when he intentionally hybridized a Philippine with her and then line bred the hybrid offspring to make what he called the Ujung Philippang hybrid line to, in a sense, try and replicate Hydrosaurus microlophus. So I took that photo just because, again, for me, it's like, wow, like to think that there was a time, because, Scott hasn't even been to Indonesia, but he had done all the reading. He understood Bleeker's description. And while he did breed Microlophus once, unfortunately, it was a case where he didn't have the stock to replenish after an accident. And I just think it's cool, like understanding that history.
Yeah, sure.
Always cool. That's why I try to learn from him. So that's why I took that photo on the flight, because it was just awesome.
That's awesome. So you got the sushi, and then all right. I think we've hit all these photos, man.
Yeah.
Cool.
It was a very brief trip because got to remember, like, it takes 2 days, a day just to get there and a day just to leave.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, again, I wish I could have tried and had this arranged in college so I could have spent 3 weeks there. But I'm pretty satisfied with, 4 days, just hardcore herping and birding. And, we got to relax a little bit. Ari took us out, to all sorts of local places. The food there is incredible because, it's fresh. There's no preservatives or pesticides. I actually got really sick when I got back in America because I was eating food here and all the processed crap. It was not good. Like, even I made pasta, dude. I was like, okay, this is a box of pasta. I'm just boiling noodles and water, and it was probably the marinara sauce, honestly. But yeah. I mean, when we got fish, they serve you a whole fish that's grilled, and Quinn ate 4 fish. Man was a beast. So a lot of great memories, and Ari's phenomenal. He's got a very interesting sense of humor, but he I don't know. I just I just feel like I hope, even with me going off on many tangents, that at least this section of the podcast has like encouraged people, like it's becoming more easy to get over to Indonesia. And at the same time, from what you've said, like the demand for Indonesian herpetofauna is now going to other markets, and it's not easy to buy that dream species of snake or lizard you want. And maybe if it's any insight too, I'm very thankful for the personal collection I have here, but there is just something different about seeing animals you love in the wild. Like, the best example I can think of is like my favorite North American rattlesnake is a timber rattlesnake. I love the timber rattlesnake. They're amazing. The history behind them is cool, with the whole, don't tread on me, Ben Franklin's quote of them. But I've seen timber rattlesnakes in God knows how many zoos. I don't remember the first one I saw in a box, but I'll tell you, I remember the first one I saw because it was at Snake Road in Illinois. So, it's and like obviously for the species that I keep, I love Hydrosaurus. I'm not going to forget getting my first one. But there's I will remember seeing that group of lizards in the wild far beyond the number of sailfins, assuming I produce more. Like, you just can't top seeing them. Like, if you ask Brian Waterloo off the top of his head how many lace has he produced, he'd probably be able to tell you. But what he'd tell you first is when he saw a lace in the wild. Conversation with him. And I just think it's important that like herpetoculture, everybody keeps throwing that word around more and more these days, and it's good because I think it like sort of refines like the the discipline that we as keepers do, as opposed to in the past you're a reptile hobbyist,
right? The hobby, the pet trade.
I think people need to remember that like herpetoculture started with herpetology, and it's, I don't know, for me it was just sort of like a thing of, I was very much a captive person, like through our volunteering at Wildlife Discovery Center, and I've volunteered and I've worked at so many different places, still do. And it wasn't until college that it sort of allowed me to try and read more scientific literature and appreciate the work that scientists had to do to go out into a field not knowing if they would come back alive just to find a cool lizard. Like I had that moment in the habitat with the Eastern Microlophus, because I was admiring the mosquitoes there. I was like, wow, that's a pretty mosquito. It's black and white. And then Aiden goes, yeah, that's Aedes aegyptica. That's the tiger mosquito that carries malaria. And then I instantly swapped it off my arm. So to think, like, imagine being like an entomologist going over there, and he's like, oh, I'm going to let it bite me and see what happens. Like, somebody had to do that.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I mean, I don't have a PhD. I don't have, I don't even have a master's, like a 4-year degree, but I do hope that, Ari, kind of like what he does, publishing his work with Boelens, at least all this stuff is citizen science. I'm putting it out here on YouTube, and I do hope our herpetologist reaches out, or at least, hears this, and maybe it pursues his grad student's project to start relooking at every jarred Hydrosaurus where it was collected and do some DNA work. From what Nature for You said earlier regarding the mitochondrial DNA that was apparently used in Seiler et al. 2014, that really shouldn't be used to determine taxonomy. So somebody has to do it.
Yeah.
If I could, I would. I don't really have the funds to go to grad school right now. And I don't know of any funded position that wants to figure out the order of these really niche lizards, especially since most universities are really trying to push native herp conservation, which is important too, right? Like we need to study indigos more, and bull snakes and rattle, like those every reptile is important. And unfortunately, just where we're at as citizens of the United States, the conservation and concern of, like, say, eastern indigos is far more important than some crazy person wanting to look at sailfin lizards of the genus Hydrosaurus in Indonesia.
Yeah.
So maybe one day.
Sure. One day indeed. Yeah. That, it's always good if there's something else down the pipeline that you have your mind set to of an eventual goal. So nothing wrong with that at all.
Yeah.
Well, we're about to hit the 2-hour mark, and it was funny kind of going in the conversation. We're like, all right, we'll do the first half about the wild, and the second half we'll talk about the breeding. And we've made it essentially to the full length of an episode. With that said, we have talked a lot about yourself and breeding efforts here in the past, but now it's actually fully come to fruition. So maybe we'll do a bit of an abbreviated version, but I guess tell the good people what's been going on in Casa de Alex the last week or so.
So I shared it on Instagram, but on Monday this week, I had, happy birthday to my sister this past weekend. So I actually flew back down to Illinois, celebrated with her and the whole fam. It was really nice to be back home. And, but earlier last week, I hatched Philippine sailfin dragons in the United States. There's no other way to put it. I will tell you, according to like people that I've talked to, I suffer terribly from imposter syndrome. Yeah. I try really hard to establish like what I'm doing with either, like I said, the research papers or collaborating with people who are actually successful. And I won't lie if I didn't say it's sometimes been difficult going on like podcasts or like writing. When I co-authored the article with Casey Schultz, Casey had already bred sailfins, and here's this nobody kid that hasn't even kept them writing an article on them. But if I'm going to defend myself there, I'd read every research paper, and I understood how to describe, in a sense, like taxonomic success or taxonomic revisions. That's all I did. But within the reptile hobby, there's no denying it that there are a lot of people where their version of expertise is, have you bred it? Oh, yeah. What do you breed? Why did everybody has to be a breeder now to be credible? For better or for worse, I'm not going to get into that debate, because I know a lot of really amazing people who do, captive breeding. And I also know a lot of people that have never bred a single reptile in their life, and they are phenomenal at what they do with husbandry, whether they're working at zoos or whether they're just legit herpetologists studying them in the wild. So in my case, I've always wanted to keep this species, or the genus in general, Hydrosaurus. And I finally got to do that 2 years ago. And it's been a process of raising those females. Last year, both the female Postulatus cycled infertile eggs. I hadn't had a male. And then specifically, and we talked about this on our episode with Casey Schultz, the Philippine sailfin dragon has not legally been imported as wild caught into the United States since 1994. That's when they were protected. And as I said, Scott, to preserve the Microlophus, he had done hybrids. And there's been a plethora of other breeders that, for better or for worse, have just thrown whatever they can together to try and make eggs.
Yeah.
And ironically, with, you know, the triple hybrids that have been made, the Ujung line from Scott's old lineage, and just every known hybrid to some extent has had Philippine sailfins in it. And for me, I fell in love with the golden blue lizard. Right? I mean, who wouldn't? They're beautiful. Right?
Yeah.
We worked with that pair at Rob's, right? Like, they were really nice.
Yeah.
So when I was working with them, I knew I wanted to keep them pure and well documented. And I'm not trying to sound like I'm on my high horse looking down on everybody, but the reality is, it's like, you know, say before I even got into lizards, I really wanted to get into like carpet pythons and green tree pythons. I love Morelia. I like arboreal snakes.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the colubrids I like are sort of semi-arboreal and whatnot too. But I was 14, and then, you know, I was learning about nidovirus, and I said, screw that. I don't want to get into that because I didn't trust myself. But the point is, the carpet python people and the green tree python people are hardcore about their lineages to the most extent, right?
Yeah.
Like, especially in green trees, from what I understand, God, hopefully MJ doesn't kill me because I don't always listen to All in the Tree Tuesdays here. But from what I understand, it's that even with the quote-unquote hybrid designer stock, I mean, people can go back 6 generations of that. So even if they've got like a, you know, I don't know how many species of green trees there are now or localities, but say there's
two full species, and then within Azuria there's 4 subspecies.
So let's say, you know, if there's one that's all 6, at least it's going to be documented.
Right, yeah.
With Hydrosaurus, we don't have that privilege, especially with the Postulatus. And for the most part, you know, we talked about this with Casey, I had now, per my notes, compiled around 12 distinct lineages, if you will. And I'm not saying like, you know, it's a line, because a line is what makes a normal phenotype look drastically different. So when I say lineage, I'm saying this is an animal that trickled in from a zoo and was owned by this person. It looks just the same as, say, person X over here who got their stock from Linda Switzer, but we at least know that they came from different sources and originated from wild-caught animals or pure stock.
Yeah.
And that was my goal, was to try and get as pure and legit Philippine sailfins as possible. Problem is, they're expensive. I am not made out of money.
Yeah.
So my good friend, I have to shout her out, Kristen Richard of Capital City Critters. She has a pair of Philippine sailfins that she had bought from a guy named John Steele back in 2017 and 2018. And so John had stock from Linda Switzer's imports. He had stock from Steele, or some from Scott Corning. John Steele had Scott's lineage. And then he had also had other wild caught ones that had came in. So he had a big founding group. And he had posted all of those breedings onto Facebook over the years. And, you know, me being the documentation person that I am, I've got photos of all of his pairings, all of his eggs hatching. It's on like a big file. Probably makes me sound like a stalker, but which, I mean, you could say I am. But the reality is that now all that stuff is cataloged and documented, because any idiot could say, oh, I've got a John Steele line Postulatus. From which pairing? Because at his peak, he had 5.5. Right? And so I knew the male and female pair that my friend Kristen's male came from, and her female. And she offered me to borrow her male on loan, because he had been living with a male for 7 years, or this male had been living with a female for 7 years. They've never gotten eggs. Well, I think Kristen's got a big collection, so I don't know if she's got people that care for her stuff and whatnot, but I couldn't pass up this opportunity to give it a shot.
Yeah.
And I have to give my my dues to Mr. Brian Waterloo, because there was a Tinley that I sat down with him. I've kind of stopped going to the auction. I just want to talk reptiles. Yeah. And he introduced me to Scott Flood, who you had on your podcast a while back. Dude, that night was probably one of the greatest reptile conversations I'd ever had, because it was just the conversations around different aspects of breeding. Okay. And Scott brought up male combat with Bolins. So I'm taking notes on Bolins, comparing it to sailfins, and then comparing it to lace monitors. And we're literally just shooting this, you know, the shit in a trifecta. Yeah. And it was something that I thought about because people always preach about infertility with sailfins. They have bad clutches. There's always so many slugs. And once in a while, you get people that just have a pair and they've got a really great male. So is it due to inbreeding? Well, this male that I've got isn't inbred. And male combat, Scott had mentioned that there's been studies done on snakes that show where male combat sometimes increases the hemipenal growth. So I have a pair of Celebensis sailfins from Brian Waterloo. And what I did is, with the way I have my reptile room set up, because all the lizards are in a single room, they're all in grow tents. The grow tents have windows. And so I have it so the main basking perches are at the back of the tent where the heat is. And then if the lizards look out the window, they can see each other. So earlier last fall and through the winter, I let them see each other and stare at each other for hours a day. They're far enough back that they're not jumping at the windows and hurting their faces, which hydrosaurs are known for. But they would flare up and posture at each other for hours.
Wow.
They did that all through winter, the dry season, and that's when the breeding started.
Oh.
And sure enough, this male from Kristen that has never bred with the female he's lived with for 7 years, females were laying good. The female specifically in this case that these eggs hatched from, they clearly were good.
Yeah, that they sure were.
Now again, this is just a one-time thing, but I'm hoping it maybe unlocks that concept of infertility.
Yeah. Okay.
And I'll tell you, I remember when I dug up I have had so many clutches of bad eggs. I think it's just because I didn't have a male, right? So, I mean, last year alone, I had 12 clutches of infertile Hydrosaurus eggs laid.
Dude, I was losing my mind.
Dude, I was like,
just before you had males at all, though?
Huh?
Was that before you had males at all, or did you have?
That was before I had males.
Oh, okay, so, but still, you're like, oh, come on, just stop playing, just stop playing.
All three girls were just cycle.
Yeah,
and this time now that the male was in play, he had went through, and then I saw the copulation. I remember her first clutch, she laid it in January, the mom to the babies that hatched. And they went 87 days, and then the eggs went bad. And I think I incubated the eggs too wet because the baby, it was dead in the egg. It was not fully formed, but I could see the heart and the lungs outside the body. It was really graphic.
Yeah.
But I remember the vermiculite just seemed too wet, in my opinion. And that was something that Scott had slapped me on my wrist about when I had visited him. Is the second time I visited him, I wanted mentorship on the care. And coincidentally, it was in the middle of the breeding season. So the first day I was there, we dug up a clutch of eggs, and he showed me how he set them up.
Okay.
And then, ironically, my last day, he's like, okay, the females laid some infertile eggs, but he said, you set these up, and I'm going to see how it goes. And it was the same thing. He said, dude, this is too wet. Try again. And then I did it lighter. So I think this was just my instincts of, crap, this is my first clutch of eggs for this year, 2025. I'm going to try it like he did, and I'm guessing I made it too wet. So this next clutch, normally this female cycles about every 37 days.
Okay.
And I don't think I fed her well enough to lay back-to-back because she got huge, and then she shrunk down. And she was doing a lot of test digging, and I tore apart the nest box, and I didn't find any eggs. But then 74 days later, she laid eggs. So I'm guessing she didn't have enough fat. She reabsorbed. She started the cycle again. And this time now she had enough fat from eating more. And she laid 3 eggs. Hydrosaurus have very, very small clutch sizes for,
how big they are. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and she's not a big girl. She's maybe snout to vent 10 inches, 11 inches.
Okay.
And I can't say total length because she's missing a tail. Yeah. But she came from Bion Terrarium Center over in Ukraine. And I call her a name that is very, very inappropriate because of her crazy attitude. And she's got like a weird wrist, and she had a tail kink.
Okay.
And Scott had noted that when he had incubated at 85, 86, they hatch out kinked, and they're usually really odd, messed up lizards. And I've seen the same with Chinese water dragons. I've incubated Chinese water dragons at 86. They hatch out tiny, and they're not nice.
Yeah.
So Scott always incubates at 82 to 84 with a night drop.
And that's what you did?
That's what I did, yes. But in the case of the female, if you watch Bion Terrarium Center actually has a YouTube video of how they breed their Philippines. And they suggest the incubation temperature of 82, 83. But if you look at the incubator in the background of the video, it says 29.5. For reference, that's 85.1 Fahrenheit. So I'm wondering if it was an older video, but it makes sense because I was looking at photos of when the Bion female came in. It was originally owned by my good friend Allie, and then I ended up acquiring my stock from her. And she showed me the photo. That lizard was so tiny, and these babies that I hatched out were about twice the size of that animal when it came into the States.
Wow.
So I guarantee you it was incubated too hot.
Okay.
Yeah. And so the incubation, I went a little bit drier. I wish I could say I did a perfect, 2-to-1 water vermiculite. I just filled up a thing of vermiculite, a big container. I used an old, pretty much the equivalent of a 6-quart shoebox, but it was a spring mix container. And I just slowly added water, and I just felt. I wanted it to feel like moist sand, so a little bit drier.
Yeah.
And what I did then is I put all the eggs next to each other in direct contact. And then this is literally how Scott does it. Like, I'm not doing anything special or new here, but they're all next to each other, touching each other. And then I fully buried them. Okay. And then you just leave them alone, check on them maybe every 4 to 6 weeks. Okay. Occasionally, just to be safe, since, it's a small clump of eggs, I would spray a little water in each corner, just so that way if they're drawing moisture as they're growing, they're not in direct contact with like the more wet vermiculite, but that way there's still moisture in the substrate that they can draw from.
Okay.
And the one thing I did differently than Scott is technically my incubator didn't have a night drop, but I think it did unintentionally because originally I wanted to use like a herp stat and set it to 84 during the day and have it drop to 78 at night. And I'm currently running, my herp stats for lighting in my reptile room. I'm doing some crazy cool dimming stuff, like more natural sunrise, sunset, and it saves me a little bit of electricity. My lights last longer. So because of that, I'm using the default thermostat that came with my incubator, and that's just a VE200. So not the best, but I've hatched a lot of stuff with VE products. So like I've hatched water dragons with it, and ironically, John Steele was hatching sailfins at a constant temp with a VE200 thermostat.
Okay.
Casey Schultz has done that too, except she adds the night drop module. So it's kind of cool. Like, I'm combining everybody's ideas into incubation. I'm doing Scott's egg box, Casey's incubator, John Steele's thermostat. I'm creating that amalgamation.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, my reptile room gets way too hot to where when I had the incubator in there, the thermostat would turn off, but just with the fans generating heat in the room hitting 85 degrees, the incubator might have gotten like 87, and I did not want to deal with that.
Damn.
So the incubator sits in my living room. It's literally like right over there. I'm staring at it. And the living room's cooler, and then the incubator can apply heat. But the since it's the VE thermostat and the probe is plastic, I have noticed sometimes, like, if the room is cooler, then the VE stat has to work more to keep it at the set temperature. But since the probe is plastic, there's a little bit more of a fluctuation. And so when I leave, I have my AC set to like 78. So the stat doesn't have to work as hard. So then the incubator might be 81, 80, even though the probe is staying well heated. And then at night, the room gets colder, so the stat has to work more. And so then I remember I put the temp gun on the back wall, and it said it was 85. but that was also at like 11 at night. So what I think happened is that because of the fluctuation of the room that the incubator is in, the incubator unintentionally had a reverse day and night cycle.
Okay.
The living room's warmer during the day when I'm not running the AC, then the incubator doesn't work as hard and it's cooler. And then at night, while I'm blasting AC so I feel comfortable and I can sleep, the incubator has to work more, and thus it's slightly warmer, which, I mean, that happens in nature, and it seemed to work just fine. You got to remember, too, the eggs are fully buried. So if the air in the incubator is fluctuating, the specific heat of the eggs buried next to each other fully under the vermiculite is probably fluctuating at a much slower pace.
Yeah.
And yeah, sure enough, day 90 hit, and I saw the egg was full the morning I woke up, and I had gotten back. The egg was full. I had cared for my collection. I was making dinner. I peeked on the egg, and the egg was dented. And I said, crap, eggs just went bad. It's dead in the egg. And so I sit there staring at it. I'm like, well, but the other egg looks white and full. And the shell moved. And like, mind you, it's already like 10 o'clock at night. So in theory, the you know, it's cooler already in the living room.
Yeah.
And now the incubator's starting to warm up. So you have to wonder if in nature the eggs detect, they follow as the temps change. And in nature, they would hatch as the day starts warming up. So they hatch during the day and can find a spot to hide.
Yeah.
And I did what any insane person does on a night before they have to go to work. I sat in front of the incubator for about 3 hours, and I watched that baby crawl out of the egg by 1 a.m. I had to wake up for work at 6, but I did not care, dude. I was not missing that for the world.
Yeah, I would expect nothing less.
So, I mean, that was, as much, even though I just said, I'll never forget wild Hydrosaurus, and I'll never forget, and I'll probably never remember how many sailfins I'll produce, but I'm not going to forget that, dude. Like, seeing that thing stick its nose out. Yeah. I mean, that was remarkable. And, like, I don't want to toot my own horn, but I've tried to check as many records as possible. I don't know if this might be the first time animals produced by Bion have been bred in the United States.
Like sailfins or just?
Yeah, sailfins.
Okay, yeah, I was going to say.
The Bion stock of sailfin being reproduced in the United States. I know people have done it with their the frilled lizards, the Chlamydosaurus kingi. There's plenty of those in the United States that they produced, but I know they've come in over the years, but even then, other than this female, I only know of one other person in the country that has stock from them.
Oh, wow.
So where do they go?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Hey, man, that's insanely cool. And not only that, obviously being able to add that unrelated trackable lineage is absolutely priceless in the long run.
I did take inspiration from Nick Mutton, and I made a nice little lineage chart of it. So hopefully he doesn't try and copyright me. I did use my own font and everything, but I had followed his Instagram page after listening to him talk on, I think, Adam Shea's podcast. I've been really enjoying that series. That's a good one.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
But I saw that, and I was like, oh, that's cool. And I was like, wait, I have photos of like Scott's animals and John's animals. Like, I could make this. I'll just put the credit of the image, because I saw he had done that with like LASIK line bredli or something like that. Oh gosh, I'm probably making a fool of myself trying to talk about carpet pythons I know nothing about. But the point is, I knew I could take that concept and just throw sailfins on it. Yeah, and hopefully, I can print that out and put that in boxes eventually when I can send stuff to customers. Like I already have a Excel spreadsheet where I've given animals ID numbers.
Yeah.
Right, including the 2 babies now that have hatched.
Yeah.
There was 1 slug in that clutch. I should have prefaced that. So out of the 3 eggs that were laid on in April, only 2 hatched, but I'll take it. It's hard enough getting good Hydrosaurus eggs, according to most people.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I do the same thing with the ID numbers of my scrub pythons. And when I send an animal out, I always write it on the deli cup or the bag what the ID number is. Hopefully, whoever's gotten animals from me keeps track of that. But yeah, I mean, I'm going to be excited for the day when I can finally make a multi-generation scrub python pedigree, and then make that F3, make that F4 like that. Yeah, I'm like what Nick Mutton has done, what a lot of the chondro people have done. I think that model should be followed by every sector of herpetoculture. I don't see a reason for it not to be.
I mean, it's what the zoos do.
Yeah,
they are crazy strict.
What the SSPs are and everything.
Yep. Yeah, Species 360 and ZIMS. I want to say those are the software they use. It's been a minute. When I took my captive wildlife management classes for my minor degree in captive husbandry, like we went into a big lecture on species survival and, in a sense, managing a stud book. And that's what I'm trying to do with Hydrosaurus. So, I mean, I'll wave the big flag up. You know, anybody listening that has documented Hydrosaurus and you know who produced them, like, please, like, let me know. Like, I mean, I'm still trying to figure out a way that I can share the lineage info. But right now, like, gosh, this can make me sound gatekeepy. I'm like the only person with access to the spreadsheet because I have a list of who currently owns that animal. And some people don't necessarily want the world knowing they have X lizard, which makes sense because I know people who have had Philippine sailfins of rare lineage. They posted publicly about it, and then the animals got stolen. So, yeah, which is my worst nightmare. So,
yeah,
I am. I guess the point is, I don't know. I'm always happy to show it like in person at a reptile show. I often bring I've got my notebook on my table right here. I've got 2 journals, and I often bring my laptop. Like, I'm happy to sit down with people and, like, I guess you say, have a mini meeting.
Yeah.
But I'm like hesitant to let that go because heaven forbid somebody just copies and pastes or changes some, like, I mean, it's that fine line of not trying to seem like I'm gatekeeping, but, like, I mean, you can ask me who produced what, and I can tell you to the best of my ability with photographic record proof. So,
yeah.
But, you know, at the same time, I'm not the Hydrosaurus police. So, you know, if people don't care, like, I'm not going to tell them, you know, you have to do it. Like, you know, at the end of the day, we're all just a bunch of weirdos keeping lizards in boxes. So I'm just really passionate about it. And there's part of me that thinks, like, working with Scott and Casey and, you know, Allie, my friend Kristen, you know, I visited Colin and Caleb Lindsay in Anchorage, Alaska, the reptile barn. I was just talking to a cool dude in California. His name's Dalton. He just opened up his own pet shop, and he loves Hydrosaurus. So he's got like a big exhibit now with apparently like all four Indonesian species on display in his shop. You know, it's like there's so many people that like really they care, or they want to work with these animals. And
yeah,
I guess it's just, for me, it's like I just want more people to think about that, like from a bigger picture perspective, that because of the groundwork, in a sense, that Scott has laid, because he's been breeding them since the 90s.
Yeah.
You know, I would like to think that there will be a child like me when I was 14 that looks at a photo of a Philippine sailfin like, man, I would love to work with that one day. And what happens if, you know, nobody's putting in the work? It's like, sorry, kid, they're all hobby Philippines now. We have no idea where the hell they come from. They could be tribrids, they could be quibrids. They, like, you have no proof. Yeah. So somebody has to keep the pure ones around. I mean, you can slap me on the wrist and say you don't know where the original stock was collected from the Philippines, because when the Dallas Zoo brought in Philippines back in 1981, I guarantee you those are not the same as the captive bred animals from China that clearly came out of the Bicol Peninsula.
Sure.
At the end of the day, they're Philippines. We know they're from the Philippines, and they weren't bred with a lizard from the Moluccan Archipelago or Sulawesi.
Right. Yeah.
And that's where I'm just trying to state the basis of purity.
Yeah.
You know, we'll never be like the gray-banded kingsnake people who are like, it was that highway on that rock. But at least if I know that the founding stock I'm working with comes from the Philippines, it means that 30 years from now, as long as I'm still alive and able to work with these, that I can provide that opportunity to the next Alex to the next Scott to the next Casey to the next Colin or Caleb, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's what's important, man. I mean, think about it with your scrub pythons, right? Like, there's probably another young Steven out there who doesn't even know he loves scrub pythons yet. He's going to see one, and then he's going to see the work you've done. He's like, I saw the post on Insta, or like the northern Wamina types, you know, that Ryan just hatched from his own stock.
Yeah.
Right? So now he has lineage of that.
That is super cool.
Yeah, like that. It's important
to get there. Yeah.
So, yeah. I mean, Lisa in the chat, Southern White Lips.
Yep.
I mean, it's the hobby is growing, and again, for me, I've been really blessed to have some incredible mentors.
Yeah.
To, in a sense, like, you know, hold my hand and get me to this point. Like, I'm standing. I'm not special for hatching Hydrosaurus. I just stood on the shoulders of people who told me how to do it, and I did it now finally. Which still, I mean, it takes time, and you do have to learn your routine and your animals, but
yeah,
that's all it takes. And I just want to make sure that if I can figure this out and now be consistent, ideally, unfortunately, I'm not going to have this big male on loan next year. So I'm kind of out of options as far as possibly being able to produce Pustellatus next year. But I just want to ensure that they stick around. And
yeah,
like I said, when that next Alex or whoever comes around, I want to make sure they have that opportunity, because that's what everybody else has done for me. Yeah,
for sure. Yeah, in this industry, really in life, but especially in the reptile industry, it's having a pay it forward mentality is you know what all of us should strive for. It's like, it's hard to pay someone back for mentorship, but if you can do the same thing for someone else, then that's what keeps this world going around.
Yeah, that's well said, dude.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think that might be a good point to wrap on, man. You know, as always, it's super inspiring to hear just how passionate you are about these animals, and you know, just how much direct attention you've put to it, how much of your life you've dedicated to it. I mean, going across the world, that's, you know, that's true dedication right there. And you know, hopefully it can inspire others to do the same thing with the animals that they're so passionate about. So, as always, you know, another one to add to that playlist on your YouTube channel.
Yes.
Always, man, thank you for being with me tonight, and thank you for sharing all those pictures and all of your experiences. This was really an awesome episode. One of my favorites that we've done.
I'm happy that, like, the episode's here.
Yeah,
I won't lie that there's definitely a part of me that had that thought in the back of my head, like, what if I never hatch these lizards? Right? Like, you know, but hopefully this will be the first of many over the next few years.
Absolutely. I guess without giving away too much, when may we be able to expect Alex to add another sailfin species to the resume?
Probably a new species. I have 3 out of 5 right now. So I need to, and the thing is, most of my group is Pustellatus.
Right.
And they take up a lot of space. You know, unfortunately, you can't just throw a sailfin in a CV70 tub. Like, my reptile room is literally like,
with that attitude.
Yeah. Like, for reference, like, half of the room is the 8-foot enclosure, and then I've got like 4x7s to house lone females and swap, and then grow outs and stuff. So I feel like the next one I want is going to be Weber's, because nobody really works with Halmahera sailfins. So
you don't have those currently, right?
I don't, no.
Right.
So I have the Celebensis. I've got Pustellatus as the big group. I'm currently working with 2.3 right now.
You have Microlophus too, right?
And I have one Microlophus, and then one of my collaborators has my reverse trio of the Eastern Microlophus, if you will. And then the one that I have in my possession is the Western look. It's just one baby, but it'll grow into the brown and black lizard. My collaborator has the gray and yellows.
Okay.
But Weber's are what I'm going to need next. Because if I want Malucan sailfins, there's a guy in the UK that's breeding those, and he's on F3 generations. His name's Ben Owens of Captive and Field Herpetology. Really amazing herpetologist. And, you know, really good private breeder. So since the sailfins are not currently protected by CITES, it'll just be one of those days. That'll probably be the last species I aim to get, because anecdotally, they're the hardest to establish in captivity as imports. And I'd rather just support his work. And ideally, if I have the money from lizard sales, just buy 20 of them and bring them stateside and keep the best ones, and then get those animals into the hands of other people that'll care about them and treat them right. So Weber's will probably next. Give me 2-3 years. I need to save up, move, have ample space to do it the right way.
Yeah.
And then 5 to 8 unsexed babies, raise them up for 3 to 5 years and get them rocking.
Hey, looking forward to it, man. So for everyone who wants to keep up with your work, where can we all find you on the internet?
Yep. Just alexsagamids. That's on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Morph Market, and Fauna.
Cool. Very cool. All right. And for me, as always, Scrub Shepherd on Instagram, Stephen Kush on Facebook, Kush Reptile on Morph Market, and at Kush Reptile on YouTube as well. Drop a new video every single Friday. And of course, I'm here every Wednesday on the Trap Talk Reptile Network. So thank you guys once again for tuning in. Catch you all back here next week for a new episode.